Chapter 219. Bailey Han said in a low voice, "Play the CD again. Maybe we can find some clues from it." The CD was played again and again. Every time Mrs. Su heard Su Yunxian's cries, she would shed tears of sadness. Unfortunately, they couldn't find any clues from the CD. It was a completely enclosed space with snow-white walls. There were no landmarks, not even a window. Other than Su Yunxian's cries and the sound of bullets being loaded, they couldn't hear anything else. There was no way to identify their environment through the sounds. Everyone was silent. In the entire living room, only Su Yunxian's hysterical cries could be heard. "You're crazy. You like Xia Dong. Why are you targeting me?" Her cries were like a sharp knife stabbing into Xia Dong's heart. Xia Dong even began to feel guilty, thinking that it was really because of her. Mrs. Su covered her mouth with a handkerchief and wailed. The old madam had a headache. She held her forehead with one hand and frowned. After a long silence, she said, "I think we should ask the police to help secretly. They have so many experts in solving cases. Maybe they can dig out some useful information." Bai Jinxiu agreed. "Huilan, the old madam is right. We should ask the police for help." Mrs. Su wiped her tears. "What if the kidnapper finds out and wants to harm Yunxian?" The old madam said, "Of course we have to find someone we can trust. Han, call the chief now and ask him for help." Bailey Han held Xia Dong's hand tightly and gave her a reassuring look. Then he walked to the landline and called the chief of the police station. He briefly explained the situation. The chief immediately said that he would immediately send someone he could trust to the old mansion to understand the situation. Half an hour later, two young policemen in civilian clothes and driving an off-road vehicle arrived at the old mansion. They took out their IDs and said that they were police officers from the Major Crimes Division. After some small talk, they got to the point. A policeman named Wang Kai took out a recording pen. "Mrs. Su, please describe the situation before the crime in detail." With the police present, Mrs. Su finally controlled her emotions. She took a deep breath and said slowly, "At that time, Yun Qian and I were attending Han's wedding at the church. Yun Qian left halfway because of something. I chased after her, but I was surrounded by reporters. When I got out of the encirclement, Yun Qian was already gone. I called her, but her phone was turned off. I didn't pay much attention to it at that time. I guessed that she was just going somewhere to relax and would be back soon. But until midnight last night, she still hadn't come home. When I called her, her phone was still turned off. That's when I realized that something was wrong." Wang Kai asked, "How long has it been since you chased after her and found that she was gone?" Mrs. Su thought for a moment and said, "About half an hour." Wang Kai asked again, "Which direction did you see her leave in?" "The last time I saw her, she was walking toward the T-junction." Wang Kai quickly analyzed the situation in his mind. There was a crossroad outside the church, and the T-junction was the road opposite the church. There were new buildings on both sides of the road, and there were fewer people. Moreover, there were no surveillance cameras on that road. Su Yunxian was most likely kidnapped on that road. He turned his head and said a few words to his colleague. The criminal police officer named Yang Xiao immediately walked out of the living room and called the chief. He briefly explained Wang Kai's analysis of the situation and asked the chief to send someone to the T-junction to look for witnesses. Wang Kai asked Mrs. Su a few more questions about Su Yunxian's social life. He wanted to know if she had offended anyone or gotten into a dispute with anyone. The answer he got was of course negative. In front of everyone, Su Yunxian was an elegant and kind goddess. Mrs. Su didn't think that she would get into a dispute with anyone at all. "Let's take a look at the CD now." Wang Kai opened the CD. He frowned and carefully observed every detail. He listened carefully to every word Su Yunxian said. Yang Xiao was also taking notes. Just like Bailey Han, they didn't find anything iconic through the video. Wang Kai turned his gaze to Bailey Han and Xia Dong and said politely, "Mr. Bailey, Mrs. Bailey, I have a few words to say to you in private." Bailey Han led them to the study upstairs. Wang Kai said, "Based on the analysis of the content of the video, the kidnapper should be someone who knows Mr. Bailey and Mrs. Bailey. Please think carefully. Among the people you know, is there anyone suspicious?" For example, Mrs. Bailey's admirer? Xia Dong had been thinking about this question for a long time. She pursed her lips and said, "No, I can't think of such a person. Can you tell me who your admirers are?" She glanced at Bailey Han awkwardly. Bailey Han nodded slightly and held her hand. She gritted her teeth and said, "There are only two admirers I know, Mika Kito and Bailey Yun." Mika Kito, the president of Bo Ao Group? Xia Dong nodded. "I've always treated him as my big brother. I know him well. He wouldn't do such a thing." Wang Kai coughed. "Mrs. Bailey, we need to investigate whether Mika Kito is innocent before we can make a judgment. As for Bailey Yun, has he been acting strangely recently?" Bailey Han said in a low voice, "It can't be Yun. Yun was in the United States and just came back yesterday. Moreover, he walked into the church after Su Yunqian left." Wang Kai didn't comment and asked, "Mrs. Bailey, have you encountered anything strange, such as being followed?" Generally, perverted admirers liked to follow the person they liked. Xia Dong thought carefully and shook her head. Bailey Han frowned and said, "Actually, there's another possibility. That is, the kidnapper deliberately released a smoke bomb to frame my wife. He's not an admirer at all." Wang Kai nodded. "That's also possible. Mrs. Bailey, have you ever had a grudge with anyone?" "Yes, her name is Su Xingchen. She's my half-sister." Xia Dong felt that it was quite ironic. Strictly speaking, Su Yunqian also had a grudge with her. Wang Kai asked Bailey Han a few more questions and then ended the conversation. After going to the living room, he said goodbye. "Madam, Mrs. Su, we have a general understanding of the situation. We will start the investigation as soon as possible. We need to bring this CD back to the police station for technical analysis. If the kidnapper sends any new information or if you think of any clues, please contact us immediately." Madam Su smiled politely. "Okay, thank you. See the guests out." The police immediately launched a secret investigation and questioned Mika Kito and Bailey Yun in detail. Both of them had witnesses who testified that they were not at the scene of the crime. The Su family spent the day in panic. The next day, the police still didn't find any clues. Instead, something more serious happened. A video appeared on the internet. The content of the video was from the CD sent by the kidnapper yesterday. Although it was controlled in time to prevent the TV, newspapers, and other media from spreading it, it couldn't stop the rapid spread of the internet. In just one morning, hundreds of small websites reposted the video. The kidnapping of the goddess of a city became the hottest topic. Many people were talking about it. They all thought that it was Xia Dong's fault. They thought that she had provoked a perverted admirer, causing Su Yunqian to be kidnapped. Some netizens said that he had attended the wedding of Bailey Han and Xia Dong. When he saw Su Yunqian being humiliated and running out of the church, he suspected that she was kidnapped at that time. He put all the blame on Bailey Han and called him a heartless man who abandoned Su Yunqian. As if to prove his words, another netizen posted a photo of Su Yunqian running out of the church with her face covered. Most people began to support this argument. They thought that it was Bailey Han and Xia Dong's fault that Su Yunqian was kidnapped. They should divorce to save Su Yunqian. As time went by, the old house of Bailey was surrounded by people. The pressure of public opinion was getting stronger and stronger. Xia Dong stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window and looked at the wall of people outside. She felt more and more uneasy. She had seen the heated discussion. If they really couldn't find any clues about the kidnapper, there was only one way left. Did she really want to divorce Bailey Han? Bailey Han pulled her away from the window and sat her on the sofa. He held her in his arms and said softly, "Honey, don't listen to their nonsense. It's not your fault. Honey, what if the police can't find any clues?" Bailey Han said in a low voice, "It won't happen. There must be a way." She stared at him uneasily. "What if there isn't a way? Are you going to divorce me?" "No." He blurted out almost without thinking. "The kidnapper's request is for us to divorce and for you to pick up Su Yunqian. Isn't this a disguised way of exchanging you for Su Yunqian? How could I do such a thing?" Xia Dong felt that his words were enough. Tears glistened in her eyes as she said, But if I don't do it, he will humiliate Su Yunqian. He held her shoulders with both hands and stared at her with deep eyes. If I exchange you for Su Yunqian, how will the kidnapper treat you? Silly, don't let your imagination run wild. I will never do that. Bailey Han felt that this matter was very strange. It seemed that the kidnapper was deliberately targeting himself and Xia Dong. It was very likely that the kidnapper had a grudge against Xia Dong. He had asked the Dragon Gang to secretly monitor Su Xingqian before, but they didn't get any useful information. He also suspected his godfather, but his godfather seemed to have disappeared without a trace. The Dragon Gang went to his godfather's lair to check, but they didn't find any clues either. Soon, Beidingshan also found out about this matter. He quickly gathered the hackers and asked them to delete the video on the internet as quickly as possible. He also asked them to delete all the negative comments about Xia Dong. However, he still couldn't stop the people from talking. Come and see. Hongxia 866. Chapter 220. It was already the third day. A new video was released on the internet. It was still the same enclosed room with white walls. Su Yunqian was tied to a chair. This time, she looked even worse than the last time. Her white dress was stained with blood, her cheeks were red and swollen, and there was blood at the corner of her lips. She sobbed as she read the note written by the kidnappers. Daddy, Mommy, don't you want your daughter anymore? Why haven't you thought of a way to save me? There are only 10 hours left until midnight. If Bailey Han and Xia Dong don't divorce, the kidnappers will really rape me. Sibu, please, let me go. The next 2 minutes were filled with Su Yunqian's pleas. The camera even gave a close-up of her face. Her sad and desperate eyes and tear-stained face moved everyone. At the end of the video, she was bawling her eyes out. Daddy, Mommy, please save me. I don't want to die, she said in a muffled voice. This video was widely shared and many people shed tears of sympathy. Everyone blamed Bailey Han and Xia Dong and asked them to take responsibility and divorce to save Su Yunqian. The Su family saw the video immediately. Mrs. Su was heartbroken. She immediately went to Bailey's old house with the help of the servants. After entering the living room, she knelt in front of Bailey Han and Xia Dong without saying a word and cried, Xia Dong, I beg you, save my daughter. Please save my daughter. Auntie, please get up first. We can talk about it slowly. Xia Dong quickly bent down to help her up. Bailey Jing also helped her. Auntie, what are you doing? Please get up first. We can talk about it calmly. Mrs. Su knelt on the ground and cried with her hands covering her mouth. There's no other way. The police haven't found any clues. Yunqian will be raped in 9 hours. How can I talk about it slowly? I beg you, please save my daughter. Bailey Han frowned and held her arm. Auntie, don't be agitated. Get up first. We will definitely think of a way. Mrs. Su cried and shook her head, refusing to get up. If you don't promise me, I won't get up. Hui Lan. Old Madam couldn't stand it anymore. She slammed her crutch on the floor and said, I know you're worried about Yunqian, but you can't lose your decorum. Look at yourself now. What are you doing? Han quickly pull her up. If you have anything to say, sit down and talk. After all, the old madam was still dignified, and Mrs. Su still had to be careful of her. She sat down on the sofa with everyone's help, and tears rolled down her face. Auntie, I only have one daughter. Yunqian has never made enemies with anyone. Why did this happen to her? I'm here today to beg you to help her. If she is raped by the kidnappers, then her life will be ruined. Mrs. Su's words seemed to be pleading, but in fact, they implied deep dissatisfaction. Like the public opinion outside, she also believed that it was Bailey Han and Xia Dong's fault that her daughter was kidnapped. Old Madam narrowed her eyes and said in a low voice, There are still 9 hours before the kidnapper's deadline. The police are in full swing. It's too early to panic. But if the police can't find anything, are we just going to watch Yunqian be raped? Mrs. Su covered her mouth and cried. Old Madam's expression froze. Mrs. Su cried even louder. Xia Dong, I beg you, please save Yunqian. You can divorce first. When the kidnappers release Yunqian, You can remarry. It won't affect you too much. Bailey Han's eyes were complicated. The kidnapper's request was obviously aimed at him and Xia Xia. Then, Yun Qian was really innocent and implicated. He felt guilty, but he absolutely couldn't exchange Xia Dong for Su Yun Qian. He held Xia Dong's hand tightly and said in a low voice, "Auntie, the kidnappers not only asked us to divorce, but also asked Xia Xia to pick up Yun Qian. This is a disguised request to replace Yun Qian with Xia Xia. I can't do that." "Then you can just stand by and watch Yun Qian get raped?" "Ahan, don't forget, 5 years ago, you had a car accident and almost lost your legs. Who was the one who protected you and helped you stand up again?" Bailey Han gritted his teeth. "I know, I haven't forgotten. I owe Yun Qian a favor, but Xia Xia is my wife. That can't be changed in this life. I can't let any harm come to her. Auntie, there's still time. I'll find a way to save Yun Qian." The old lady said, "Instead of sitting here and wasting time, it's better to find a way to find Yun Qian's whereabouts. Ahan, contact the police and ask them if there's any new progress." After investigation, the police found a witness near the T Street. The witness said that he saw a woman walking on the street, and then a black Santana suddenly braked. The person in the car seemed to have an argument with the woman, and the woman was pulled into the car. The police took Su Yunqian's photo and asked the witness to identify the woman who was taken away. They confirmed that the woman was Su Yunqian. The witness remembered the license plate number, and the police found that the Santana belonged to a car rental company. The car rental company had returned the car yesterday. The police checked the ID number left by the car rental company and found that it was a fake one. For hours later, the identity of the car rental company was still not found. Wang Kai and Yang Xiao carefully interrogated the staff at the car rental registration office. The staff said the person who rented the car was a tall man. He was wearing a hat, glasses, and a black jacket. When he returned the car, the tires were full of mud. The mud splashed all over the car door and body. Wang Kai said, "Where is the car? We want to see it. 2 of you, this way please." The staff led them to the black Santana and said, because it was just returned yesterday evening, it hasn't been cleaned yet. Indeed, as the staff said, the body of the car was covered with mud and dirty. Wang Kai got into the car, put on gloves on his hands, and rummaged for a long time in the car seat. He didn't even find a hair, let alone things like cigarette ash. It was estimated that the other party had prepared in advance to avoid leaving any clues. It hasn't rained in City A these 2 days. Where did the car go? Why was there so much mud on the car? Wang Kai frowned and said, "Yang Xiao, contact the bureau and ask them to check the traffic video of this car." The bureau chief mobilized a large number of people and asked them to hold the video and carefully search for the whereabouts of the Santana. Finally, they found that it had been driven to the eastern suburbs of the city. Yang Xiao calmly analyzed, "The eastern suburbs of the city are under construction. There are many construction sites. Could the mud be from the car passing by those sites?" "Yang Xiao, let's go to the eastern suburbs of the city." The two got into the off-road vehicle and drove all the way to the eastern suburbs of the city. There were many half-built high-rise buildings, and there were still overpasses. There were workers busy on the construction site. They got out of the car and parked it on the side of the road. They took the photo of Su Yunqian and asked around. The workers said that they had never seen her. Then they took the photo of the black Santana and asked, but they also said that they had never seen it. There were construction sites about a mile away. It was too time-consuming for Wang Kai and Yang Xiao to check in detail. Before they came, they applied for support from the bureau. Soon, the support people came and searched all the buildings in this area, but they still couldn't find the whereabouts of Su Yunqian. Did we guess wrong? Yang Xiao stood on the high floor and looked into the distance with a heavy face. The night was dark, and the tense atmosphere surrounded everyone present. The contractor who led them upstairs suddenly patted his head and said, "Police colleagues, you're looking for a place with muddy roads. Other than this construction site, there's another place that meets the requirements." Wang Kai hurriedly said, "Where?" The contractor pointed to a mountain not far away. It was not very clear in the night. He said, "That mountain is a dirt road. Once it rains, it will be muddy. There's no way for cars to pass. The road will only get better after 4 or 5 days of clear weather. It just so happened that there was a heavy rain 4 days ago. I think the dirt road there is still muddy. Wang Kai raised his hand to look at his watch. It was already 8 o'clock in the evening. They only had 4 hours left. He waved his hand. Everyone, let's hurry to that mountain. While the police were nervously tracking, the Su family gathered at the Old Bailey residence. Father Su Boland's face was cold and his eyes were anxious. Madame Su nervously clutched her handkerchief. Su Jin An's thin lips were tightly pursed, and his entire body emitted a cold aura. He was like a sharp sword that could be unsheathed and hurt people at any time. The faces of the Bailey family members were also not good. Everyone's eyes were cast on the old European-style pendulum clock. Every time the pendulum clock rang, their nerves became more tense. The oppressive and tense atmosphere was suffocating. The pendulum rang again. There were only 3 hours left before it was 12 o'clock. Su Jin could no longer hold it in. He suddenly stood up, took his phone, and walked towards the living room door. Bailey Yun suddenly stood up and quickly blocked him. He stared at him coldly. Jin, what are you trying to do? Su Jin's eyes burned with flames. What else can I do? Of course I'm going to call Chi Feng and have him gather all the media. Bailey Yun's foxy eyes narrowed dangerously. You want to sacrifice Xia Dong to save Su Yunqian? Su Jin glared at him fiercely and said word by word, "That's my sister." Bailey Yun's heart throbbed. Although he didn't like Su Yunqian, he had known her for so many years. Of course, he was worried. However, he would never agree to exchange Xia's safety for her safety. He snorted coldly. So what if we gather the media? The Civil Affairs Bureau has already closed. Are we going to apply for a divorce certificate for them? Su Jinan took out a document from his pocket. The divorce certificate. I've already prepared it. It's a fake certificate. It costs $10. As long as we can delay the kidnappers, we can buy more time for the police. Foley Songshu 566. Chapter 221. He didn't expect Su Jin to have prepared a fake divorce certificate. Bailey Yun seemed to have no reason to stop him. Xia Dong suddenly stepped forward and said, I agree. Everyone's eyes were on her. She pursed her lips and said, I agree to hold a press conference. Mr. Su, please contact Mr. Xiao. Bailey Han's eyes suddenly narrowed. He suddenly grabbed her wrist and said in a low voice, Wait for another hour. I believe the police will find Yunqian. No need to wait. Xia Dong tilted her head and smiled at him. If there are only 2 hours left, Mr. Xiao won't have enough time to contact the media. It's just a fake divorce, isn't it? He stared into her eyes seriously and said firmly, It's just a fake divorce. He would never put her in danger. After Xiao Qifeng received Su Jin An's call, he quickly informed his assistant to contact the gold medal reporters of various media outlets and the hotel to prepare the venue for the press conference. Everything was settled. There was only an hour left, but there was still no good news from the police. Everyone rushed to the press conference venue with heavy hearts. The venue was filled with reporters. Many of these people had just crawled out of bed and were still a little dispirited. However, when they saw the people from the Su family and the Bailey family appear, it was as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Their spirits were lifted and they were ready to shoot. Bailey Han and Xia Dong sat in the middle of the stage. There was a small red book in front of them. The reporters sitting in front of them immediately guessed that it was the divorce certificate. As time passed, the venue gradually quieted down. There was no sound at all. Everyone's nerves were stretched taut. The Su family members sitting in the first row kept looking at the watch on their wrists. Their hearts were about to stop. Tick-tock, tick-tock. 10 minutes left. 9 minutes, 8 minutes, only 6 minutes left until 12 o'clock. There was still no news from the police. The old madam closed her eyes and sighed. Su Jinan's face was gloomy, like the sky before a storm. He grabbed the microphone with his right hand and said concisely, Thank you all for coming. The press conference will now begin. Bailey Han glanced at the watch on his wrist. There were only 5 minutes left. If he didn't open his mouth, Su Yunqian would probably be in trouble. He turned to look at Xia Dong apologetically. Xia Dong smiled and comforted him with a smile. He moved the microphone in front of him, made up his mind, and said in a deep voice, "I, Bailey Han, hereby announce that Xia Dong and I have completed the divorce procedures this afternoon. Please bear witness." Bailey Han picked up the divorce certificate in front of him and held it up high. The reporters below the stage immediately snapped their shutters, and there were even cameras broadcasting live on the internet. According to the kidnapper's request, they needed to film the divorce certificate from all angles. Bailey Han opened the certificate and showed the contents in front of the camera. He held the certificate up high and glanced at his watch. There was only 1 minute left. His heart clenched tightly. Wang Kai suddenly called. Su Jinan couldn't care less. In front of everyone, he pressed the answer button and said anxiously, "Officer Wang, how is it?" Wang Kai gasped for breath. "We found the kidnapper's hiding place, but it was too late. The kidnappers have already moved Miss Su to another place." Su Jinan's heart sank, but he still had a glimmer of hope. He hoped that this press conference could fool the kidnappers. Beep, 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 beep. The phones of the reporters below the stage rang. They checked their phones and received a video file. They immediately shouted, "It's from the kidnappers." Beep, beep. Everyone below the stage received the video file from the kidnappers. The staff projected the newly released video onto the big screen in the venue. In the video, Su Yunqian was no longer in the room from before. The walls of this room were dark and it looked like a basement. She was still tied to the chair. Her hands trembled as she held a piece of white paper, crying in despair. The sound of a bullet being loaded could be heard. She was forced to suppress her cries under the kidnapper's coercion. Trembling, she read the contents of the paper aloud. "Bailey Han, Xia Dong, your divorce certificate is fake. You want to fool me? You're too naive. I gave you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. Now, in front of all of you, I'm going to take Su Yunqian." She wailed loudly and couldn't read anymore. A hand suddenly appeared on the screen. The hand was wearing a rubber glove. It grabbed Su Yunqian's hair and slammed her against the back of the chair. She was in so much pain that her face was distorted. "It hurts. Please, let me go." A black figure appeared on the screen. His back was facing the camera, and his face was covered by a mask. It was impossible to see his face clearly. The position he stood at was very skillful, and it was just right for Su Yunqian to be exposed to the camera. He untied the rope around her waist and pushed her to the ground. Su Yunqian's hands and feet were still tied. She crawled on the ground in despair and stepped back. "Please, don't come over, don't come over." The man approached her step by step, grabbed her hair, and slapped her hard on the cheek. "What should we do? What should we do?" Mrs. Su was about to break down when she saw her daughter being abused. She shook Su Bolin's arm fiercely. "Honey, what should we do? How can we save Yunqian?" The old lady closed her eyes in despair. Her ears were filled with Su Yunqian's painful screams. Bai Jinxiu was so scared that her face turned pale. Xia Dong was so nervous that her heart almost stopped beating. She stared at the screen and dug her nails into her palms. "It's all my fault. If I hadn't really gotten a divorce, I wouldn't have caused her to be murdered." Bailey Han's heart ached. The guilt almost suffocated him, but he didn't regret it at all. The kidnappers were ruthless and could do anything. Even if he really divorced, the kidnappers would still let Xia Dong take Su Yunqian's place to suffer. Some reporters were filming the reaction of the Su family and Bailey's family. Su Jinan was furious. Like a crazy beast, he suddenly rushed forward, grabbed all their cameras, and smashed them on the ground. These reporters had no sympathy. The victim's family was already so sad, but they only knew how to film the news and catch the hot news. "Let me go, you bastard, let me go." A tragic cry came from the big screen. At this time, Su Yunqian had been pinned down by the man in black. Her clothes had been torn, revealing her white and tender skin. The man in black grabbed her hands and put them above her head. His other hand reached to her feet and untied the rope around her ankles. Her legs were free, and she immediately kicked the man on top of her. The man didn't move at all. He waved his hand, and two more hands appeared on the screen. They grabbed Su Yunxian's feet from behind and pulled them apart. Su Yunxian was like a fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. The photographer took a close-up of her face. Her face was full of despair, and her eyes were unfocused. She kept screaming, "Go away, go away." The man controlled her hands with one hand and touched her chest with the other. Because of the angle of the camera, her chest was not completely exposed. Part of it was blocked by the man's body, but from the man's actions, everyone could guess. The man's hand reached between her legs. There was only a tearing sound. The man threw a pair of torn underwear in front of her, deliberately letting everyone see it clearly. "You beast, I'll kill you." Su Yunxian was still making her last struggle. She suddenly raised her head and bit the man's arm. The man raised his other hand and slapped her face. Her head suddenly tilted and hit the floor. Mrs. Su couldn't bear it anymore and fainted in Su Bolan's arms. Su Bolan pinched her philtrum. Bai Jingxiu's face was pale. She put her hands together and prayed to the gods to save Su Yunxian's life. "Don't play it anymore. Turn it off. Quickly turn it off." Su Jin and rushed to the staff like a madman and turned off the video. However, all the reporters in the audience received the video file. He could turn off the video on the computer, but how could he turn off the other people's phones? A painful howl came from the phone and echoed throughout the press conference. The man in black lay on Su Yunxian's body and moved his body. Everyone knew what that meant. Some people couldn't watch it anymore and turned off the video. There were also female reporters who shed tears of sympathy. Without the kidnapper's contact information, they couldn't communicate with him directly. They didn't even have the chance to stop. Su Jin and was desperate and regretful. He should have insisted on Bailey Han and Xia Dong divorce. Then, he wouldn't have caused his own sister to be humiliated. He slammed his fist on the table and blood flowed down the back of his hand. He suddenly turned his head and glared fiercely at Bailey Han with anger and pain in his eyes. Before anyone could react, he pounced on Bailey Han like a raging lion and punched Bailey Han's face. Bailey Han didn't dodge, nor did he counterattack. He forcefully took on the heavy punch that was filled with anger. Click, click, click. The camera flashes kept going. Some reporters wanted to see the world in chaos. Su Jin's eyes were bloodshot. He waved his fist and wanted to punch him again. The staff next to him reacted and quickly grabbed his arm. Su Jin was so strong that it took two staff members to hold him back. His handsome face was distorted with anger. He glared at Bailey Han. "Bailey Han, you bastard. It's all your fault. If it weren't for you, Yunxian wouldn't be in trouble. Let me go. I'm going to kill that bastard." Bailey Han's cheeks were swollen and there was blood on the corner of his lips. He didn't dodge or avoid. He stood like a statue and said in a low voice, "Let him go." Welfare, Shinwu 799. Her family didn't dare to let her go out either, lest she be slandered by those angry people. The police didn't give up on the search. That night, they finally found a secluded house on the mountain mentioned by the contractor. They confirmed that it was the place where the kidnappers were. Unfortunately, the house was already empty. Other than a chair and a few pieces of hemp rope, there was nothing else in the room. In the trash can outside the house, they found fast food boxes and instant noodles boxes. After identification, only Su Yunxian's fingerprints were on those items. The kidnappers and their accomplices didn't leave any clues. Where did the kidnappers transfer Su Yunxian to? No one could answer this question. Each day felt like a year to the two families. Bailey Han hadn't smiled from the bottom of his heart for many days. Xia Dong looked at his stiff smile and felt sorry for him. Once, she couldn't help but hug him and whisper, "If you don't want to smile, don't smile." "I'm sorry." Bailey Han stroked her long hair. Her eyes were sore as she shook her head. He didn't do anything wrong to her. She just didn't want him to torture her anymore. 5 days passed, and there was still no sign of Su Yunxian. The kidnappers didn't send any more messages. It was as if they had disappeared from the face of the earth. Mrs. Su was on the verge of collapse. One morning, Xia Dong was pushing old Master Xia Dong for a walk in the courtyard. Mrs. Su rushed in like a madwoman and grabbed Xia Dong's arm. She yelled angrily, "It's all your fault, you jinx! Give my daughter back to me! Give my daughter back to me!" Mrs. Su shook Xia Dong's arm and even reached out to hit her. Fortunately, Xia Dong was prepared and grabbed her wrist. "Mrs. Su, calm down." "How can I calm down? If it wasn't for you, my daughter wouldn't have been abandoned by Ahun. If it wasn't for you, she wouldn't have been kidnapped and humiliated. It's all your fault. I'll kill you." Mrs. Su was blinded by hatred. She didn't care about her image. Her right hand was grabbed by Xia Dong and she couldn't move. She grabbed Xia Dong's hair with her left hand and pulled. "Young madam, are you okay?" Mrs. Su let go of her. A servant heard the noise and ran over. He grabbed Mrs. Su's arm from behind and tried to pry her hand away. However, Mrs. Su was very strong. When she saw that someone was coming to stop the fight, she suddenly raised her leg and kicked Xia Dong in the stomach. Xia Dong's hair was pulled and her right hand was grabbed by Mrs. Su's right hand. There was no way for her to dodge. She instinctively reached out with her left hand to block the kick. Fortunately, Xia Dong was also very strong. She grabbed Mrs. Su's ankle tightly and prevented Mrs. Su from kicking her in the stomach. "Help!" The servant hurriedly called for help. "Huilan, what are you doing? Let go of her." Old Madam heard the noise and rushed over with her walking stick. She was so angry that she almost vomited blood when she saw the two people in front of her. Mrs. Su was determined to teach Xia Dong a lesson. She didn't listen to Old Madam and fought against Xia Dong with all her might. Two more servants rushed up, and the three of them finally managed to separate Madame Su and Xia Dong. When Bailey Han heard the news and rushed over, he saw his battered wife and angry Mrs. Su being pulled apart by the servants. He saw Xia Dong's hair in a mess and Mrs. Su throwing away a strand of hair in her hand. Anger surged in his heart and he clenched his fists. But in the end, he suppressed it and looked coldly at Mrs. Su. "Auntie, this isn't Xia Dong's fault. If you want to settle the score, put it on me." "You think I don't dare? I'll settle the score with you right now, you heartless bastard. If it weren't for you, Yunqian wouldn't have run out of the church and been kidnapped." Mrs. Su only had hatred in her heart. She rushed up and slapped him on the cheek. Bailey Han didn't dodge. He took the slap. She reached out to hit him again, but Bailey Han easily grabbed her wrist and said coldly, "Auntie, calm down. Look at yourself now. You're no different from a shrew." Mrs. Su felt a sharp pain in her wrist, which seemed to irritate her nerves. She dazedly let go of her hand and slumped into the chair, crying loudly. "Yunqian, my daughter, where are you?" Mrs. Su cried her heart out. Old Madam couldn't help but tear up. She walked up and patted her shoulder gently. "Huilan, don't be sad. Yunqian will come back." "Auntie, what should we do? It's been 8 days and Yunqian's still missing. What if the kidnapper killed her?" Mrs. Su hugged Old Madam's waist and cried even harder. "I only have one daughter. If the kidnapper kills her, he'll be struck by lightning." Old Madam let her hug her and gently patted her back to comfort her. She gave Bailey Han and Xia Dong a look, indicating that they should leave first. When they returned to their room, Bailey Han pulled Xia Dong to sit on the sofa. He stood beside her and held her head with both hands. He looked carefully and found that a small part of her hair near her right ear had been pulled out. He rubbed her scalp with heartache and asked softly, "Does it hurt?" "It doesn't hurt. I'm fine. Don't worry." Xia Dong pulled his hand down from her head and let him sit beside her. "Let me see your face." There were clear fingerprints on his handsome face. She bit her lip and carefully applied medicine for him. After the big scene, Mrs. Su gradually regained some rationality. She apologized in front of Old Madam, but she didn't want to see Bailey Han and Xia Dong again. She washed her face, tidied up her makeup, and left the old mansion under the escort of the butler. Although the Su family didn't come looking for trouble again, the shackles that bound Bailey Han and Xia Dong's hearts didn't disappear. 5 days later, when everyone thought that Su Yunqian had met with a mishap and would never come back, The police suddenly found her. When the police sent her home, she was wearing a large police coat. Her hair was messy and her face was dirty. When she saw people approaching, her eyes revealed a terrified expression. She screamed, waved her arms, and kicked her feet to prevent people from coming closer. When the Sue family heard that the police had found her, they were very happy. But when they saw her like this, they all cried sadly. Mrs. Sue's body swayed. If it wasn't for Sue Boland supporting her, she would have fallen to the ground. A female police officer glanced at Sue Yunqian hiding behind the car seat and explained, "When we found Miss Sue in the suburbs, she was already like this. Maybe it was caused by excessive shock." "Thank you, officer. Thank you so much." Sue Boland said a few words of thanks and then asked the maid to come forward and pull Sue Yunqian out of the car. Sue Yunqian screamed and kicked, but she refused to come out. Mrs. Sue went forward with tears streaming down her face. "Yunqian, my good daughter, I'm your mommy. Come out, mommy will take you home." Sue Yunqian acted as if she didn't know her. There was no other expression in her eyes except for fear. She hid behind the car seat in fear and screamed, go away, don't come over." "My good daughter, it's me. I'm your mommy." Mrs. Sue didn't expect her daughter to not recognize her. Her heart ached so much that she cried. Mrs. Sue didn't give up. She called her name softly and kept comforting her. She gradually calmed down and wasn't as agitated as before. Her eyes were filled with confusion. "Mommy?" Awesome novel, Shinwoo 799. Chapter 223. Yes, it's me. I'm your mommy. Yunqian, come here and let mommy hug you. Hearing her daughter call her, even if it was a question, she was overjoyed and opened her arms. Sue Yunqian bit her lips and seemed to be hesitating. She was like a frightened rabbit, quietly poking her head out a little. But when she saw so many strangers outside, she immediately shrank back in shock. Madame Sue quickly waved her hand. "Hubby, Jinan, back away." She patiently opened her arms and said softly, "Yunqian, I'm your mommy. I won't hurt you. Come here, let's go home." Sue Yunqian carefully took a few steps forward and secretly glanced at the people outside. Sue Boland and the others were far away. Madame Sue gently called a few more times. Sue Yunqian finally gathered her courage and carefully got out of the car and into her arms. Madame Sue held back her tears and gently patted her back. "Good girl, mommy will take you home. No one will hurt you anymore." It was not until Sue Yunqian got out of the car that everyone saw clearly that her legs were also covered with wounds. Some were from being beaten, and some were from being scratched by branches. Everyone was heartbroken. Sue Boland couldn't help but ask the female police officer in a low voice, "Officer, how did you find my daughter?" The female police officer said, "Someone found Miss Sue in the suburbs and called the police. When we arrived, Miss Sue was pacing back and forth by the riverbank. She was not in a clear state of mind. I think she escaped by herself." Still no news of the kidnapper? Sue Boland's eyes were filled with hatred. If he knew who was harming his daughter, he would definitely let that person die a horrible death. "I'm sorry, there are no clues at the moment. If there is any news, we will inform you immediately." Sue Boland thanked her again. The female police officer got into the car and returned to the police station. Because Sue Yunqian was afraid of strangers, Sue Jinan had already asked the servants to leave. He and Sue Boland also stayed far away. They didn't dare to get close, fearing that they would trigger her emotions. Mrs. Sue helped Sue Yunqian up the stairs and back to her room. She hugged her shoulders and curled up on the sofa, shivering. Her eyes were unfocused, and there was only confusion in them. Mrs. Sue's heart ached. She hugged her tightly and said softly, "Yunqian, don't be afraid. You're home now. Daddy and Mommy will protect you." Sue Yunqian didn't say a word. She stared blankly at her bare feet, her shoulders trembling slightly. "Yunqian, Mommy will help you take a bath, then you can have a good sleep, okay?" Mrs. Sue gently tidied up her messy long hair. She still didn't say anything, so Mrs. Sue took it as a yes. She held her hand and walked her to the bathroom. She turned on the hot water and asked Gigai to wait inside while she went out to get a clean towel and a bathrobe. The hot water flowed slowly, and the water in the bathtub gradually overflowed. Yunqian, come, take off your clothes first. Mrs. Su put her hands on her shoulders, intending to take off her jacket. She suddenly screamed as if she had gone crazy. Go away, don't touch me. She hugged her chest in horror and shivered as she stepped back. Mrs. Su's nose twitched and she almost cried. She softly comforted her. Okay, I won't touch you. Good girl, take off your clothes and take a bath yourself, okay? The rape incident must have left a shadow in her heart, so she didn't allow others to take off her clothes. She shrunk and carefully leaned against the bathtub, glancing at Mrs. Su from time to time. Her eyes were full of vigilance. Mrs. Su had no choice but to leave the bathroom and gently close the door. Mrs. Su was worried that something would happen to her daughter, so she stayed at the door and didn't dare to leave. She only felt relieved when she heard the sound of running water. She waited outside for more than an hour before the sound of running water stopped. After another 10 minutes, Su Yunqian still hadn't come out. Mrs. Su panicked and knocked on the door, calling her daughter's name softly, but she didn't hear any response. Mrs. Su's heart tightened. She hurriedly opened the bathroom door and rushed in. She found her daughter wrapped in a bathrobe carelessly with her arms around her shoulders. She was barefooted and curled into a ball in the corner. Yunqian, good girl, go out with mommy. Mrs. Su tentatively held her wrist. Seeing that she didn't resist, she helped her up from the ground. After returning to the bedroom, her hair was still dripping. Mrs. Su took a towel and dried her hair with a hairdryer. Mrs. Su wanted to apply medicine for her wounds, but she silently protested, unwilling to let Mrs. Su touch her. Mrs. Su could only put the medicine in front of her and let her apply it herself. In front of her mother, Su Yunqian didn't want to apply medicine. She walked straight to the bed and crawled under the quilt, covering herself tightly. She didn't look safe at all. Coming out of her daughter's room, Mrs. Su was physically and mentally exhausted. She walked to the living room with heavy steps. Su Bolin and Su Jin were both there. Su Bolin asked, "How is Yunqian?" Mrs. Su held her forehead with one hand. "She seems to be badly frightened. Even when I touched her, she rejected and screamed." Su Jin frowned. "Dad, Mom, I think it's better to ask a doctor to check on Yunqian." Su Bolin was silent for a moment and said, "Jin, find a trustworthy expert and ask him to check on Yunqian." Mrs. Su thought for a moment and said, "Should we inform the Bailey that Yunqian is back?" Su Jin's face darkened. He said coldly, "Will they still care about Yunqian's life?" Su Bolin's face didn't look good either. He said lightly, "You can't say that. We still have to be polite. Huilan, call the old madam and tell her." Mrs. Su immediately took the landline and dialed the Bailey's number. The old madam's eyes were filled with tears. She patted the back of Su Yunqian's hand. The old madam told a few more interesting things about her when she was young. She listened quietly with a smile on her face. "Yunqian, have a good rest. Grandma will come to see you in 2 days." Before leaving, the old madam put her hand under the quilt and said softly. Su Yunqian's lips moved. "Han." Ever since Su Yunqian called Mrs. Su Mommy, when she came home, she hadn't spoken to her. Mrs. Su was very excited when she heard her speak again. She said, "Yunqian, what did you just say? Say it again." Su Yunqian's lips moved slightly and said clearly, "Han." The old madam and Mrs. Su didn't understand what she meant. Bai Jinxiu suddenly said, "Is Yunqian talking about Han? What did she mean? Did Yunqian want to see Bailey Han?" Mrs. Su's expression changed. Bailey Han was now married to Xia Dong. If she saw him, wouldn't Yunqian's condition be even more aggravated? The old madam sighed in her heart, but there was a smile on her face. She said softly, "Yunqian, do you want to see Han?" Su Yunqian nodded slightly. The corners of her lips were still curled up slightly, as if she was looking forward to his arrival. Mrs. Su and Bai Jinxiu looked at each other and saw the worry in each other's eyes. Finally, Mrs. Su sighed and said, "Why don't we ask Han to come and see Yunqian?" Although Bai Jinxiu was a little worried, she couldn't refuse Mrs. Su since she asked. Shinwoo 799. She was like a child, cheering and clapping her hands. But in the next second, she seemed to have forgotten about it. She turned around and looked at the world outside the window. She was as quiet as a statue. Seeing her become like this, Bailey Han felt nothing but guilt in his heart. He said in a low voice, "Yunxian, I'm sorry." She turned a deaf ear to him and continued to walk away. He stood there for a while and looked at her back deeply. Finally, he left the ward. Bailey Han's figure appeared at the bottom of the hospital building. Su Yunxian stood in front of the window and watched his back disappear further and further away. There was no expression on her beautiful face. Bailey Han came out of the hospital and drove directly to the company. Xia Dong calculated the time and guessed that he should have arrived at the company. She called him. "Hubby, how's Su Yunxian's condition?" Bailey Han sat behind his desk and rubbed his eyebrows. "Not too good." He briefly explained the situation when they met. Xia Dong frowned. If she guessed correctly, Su Yunxian was showing signs of dissociative identity disorder. Bailey Han paused and said, "I promised her that I would visit her tomorrow." She was stunned and smiled. "Okay. Don't think too much." He just felt guilty and couldn't bear to reject her request. Moreover, he hoped that she would get better soon. Xia Dong smiled. "I understand. Don't worry about me. Go back to work. I won't disturb you." The corners of Bailey Han's lips curled up. "Kiss me." "I don't want to. I'm hanging up. Bye." Xia Dong shook her head in amusement. Su Yunxian's kidnapping case could be said to be a sensation. The media had been paying attention to her whereabouts, so after she returned, the media quickly received the news and quickly dug out that she had a mental problem and was receiving treatment. This attracted everyone's sympathy, and no one made a fuss about her being raped. Because of Su Yunxian's return, the criticism of Bailey's family also weakened. In addition, Shenghao Group and Bailey Group were good at crisis public relations, so the impact of this matter on the group was quickly minimized. Life gradually returned to normal, and Xia Dong began to pick up the little guys to and from school again. However, she didn't expect to meet Mika Kito when she picked up the little guys today. Mika Kito missed Xiao Bao and didn't have the chance to see him, so he waited for him at the school gate. Mika Kito hugged Xiao Bao and the two of them laughed as if there was no one else around. Xia Dong's car stopped by the side of the road, and she saw Mika Kito's tall and handsome figure at a glance. She didn't know how to face him, so she could only sit in the car and hesitate whether to go down to see him. Unexpectedly, Xiao Yi had already seen her car. He walked over steadily and knocked on the window. "Mommy, why aren't you coming down?" Xia Dong opened the car door and got out. She squatted in front of him and whispered, "Xiao Yi, pretend that you didn't see me." Xiao Yi's mouth twitched. "Are you hiding from Mika Kito?" Xia Dong quickly covered his mouth and whispered, "Don't be so loud." Xiao Yi widened his eyes and made a muffled sound. She relaxed her hand and whispered, "I'm not hiding from him. I'm just not ready to see him yet." Sigh, she was such a pitiful mother. She even had to explain these things to her son. Xiao Yi blinked to indicate that she understood. She then let go of his mouth. He sighed helplessly. "But Mommy, the person you're hiding from has already seen you." Xia Dong suddenly looked up. Sure enough, a pair of long legs was walking in her direction. She looked up stiffly and saw Mika Kito's cold and handsome face. He was still carrying Xiao Bao in his arms. Xiao Bao gave her an "I sympathize with you" expression. She covered her face. She wanted to find a hole to hide in. Since she couldn't hide, she might as well face it bravely. She stood up abruptly and smiled stiffly at Mika Kito. "Brother Shin, why are you here?" "I'm here to see Xiao Bao." Mika Kito put Xiao Bao down and stroked his head. "Xiao Bao, get in the car with Xiao Yi first." "Oh, okay." Xiao Bao patted Xiao Yi's shoulder. "Xiao Yi, let's get in the car first." The two little rascals wiggled their little butts as they climbed into the car. They even lowered the window considerately and pretended that they were not going to eavesdrop on anything. In reality, their little heads were pressed tightly against the car door and their little ears were pricked up. Mika Kito stared deeply at Xiaodong. His tall figure stood in front of her, exuding an oppressive aura. She clenched her fists nervously and smiled unnaturally. Brother Shin, I'm very happy that you're willing to attend our wedding. Mika Kito suddenly took a step forward and was only a few centimeters away from her. She was so nervous that she didn't know what to do. He suddenly reached out and pulled her into his arms. He supported her back with one hand and pressed her head tightly against his chest. His voice was low and hoarse as if it came from his chest. Xia Xia, if you get hurt, I'll stand here forever. Xia Dong's nose twitched and tears welled up in her eyes. She sobbed. Brother Shin, I'm not worth it. He held her hand and placed it over his heart. You're the only one who's ever been here. You'll be the only one in the future. She almost choked with sobs and shook her head. No, Brother Shin, don't be like this. If you're not happy, I'll feel guilty for the rest of my life. He looked up and wiped her tears gently, just like he had done for the past 5 years. The corners of his lips curled up and there was a gentle warmth in his eyes. He said word by word, there's only happiness when you're here. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She bit her lip tightly and her shoulders trembled slightly. He suddenly let go of her and took a step back. Chapter 225. Xiaodong thought for a moment and said, Xiao Yi, Xiao Bao, don't tell anyone about your meeting with Uncle Mika Kito, okay? Xiao Yi's face darkened as she said angrily, not even Daddy? Are you trying to cheat on him? Xiaodong's face darkened. I'll tell your daddy. I'm just worried that the rest of the family will find out and cause unnecessary trouble. What, cheating on him? What nonsense are you spouting? Xiao Bao glared at Xiao Yi in annoyance. Don't talk nonsense. Mom isn't that kind of person. Uncle Shin isn't that kind of person either. If you can't say for sure. Xiao Yi was still full of hostility towards Mika Kito. As long as it was Daddy's love rival, he would treat him with hatred. Because of a disagreement, the two little fellows were like fighting roosters. They glared at each other and almost pounced on each other. Xiaodong's face darkened as she raised her voice. Both of you, sit down properly. If you continue to mess around, I'll punish you. Domestic violence. Child abuse. These two brats were already on the same side when it came to dealing with her. Xiaodong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She drove the car into the garage and led the two little fellows home. Just as she walked to the door of the living room, Xiaodong received a call from Yisiki. She gestured for the two little fellows to go in first while she walked towards the garden. As she walked, she spoke on the phone. Siki, have you brought Nyonyo home? Yeah, we just came back. Nyonyo is doing her homework in her room. I'm calling you because I want to ask you about your recent situation. Xiaodong sat on the chair and pinched the space between her brows. I'm much better now. Luckily, Su Yunqian is back. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the face to stay in this house anymore. Yi Siki rolled her eyes. Silly, it's not your fault. I still feel like someone is deliberately messing with you behind your back. Xiaodong sighed. Maybe. The police still haven't found the whereabouts of the kidnappers. As for what the truth is, I don't think anyone cares. Right now, everyone thinks that Su Yunqian is the victim and I am the culprit. No matter what others say, as long as Bailey Han believes in you, there will be no problem. Xiaodong's smile was a little bitter. He trusted me very much, and he protected me very much at that time. However, when I see his guilty look now, I can't help but regret it. I should have gotten a divorce back then. Maybe I could have brought Su Yunqian back safely. Idiot, you went to pick up Su Yunqian. What if something happened to you? Don't forget that you have a baby in your belly. That baby can save Xiao Guai's life. If something happened to you, it would implicate the two babies. Yi Siki's words were like a bucket of water that suddenly woke Xiaodong up. She was stunned for a moment before she said slowly, let's not talk about me anymore. How are you and Lin Shihao doing now? Yi Siki paused. Just like that. Xiaodong asked carefully, is he still in contact with Bai Meiwei? Not in private, but they are still connected at work. Xiaodong rubbed her eyebrows. Yezi, you should start over. After all, he didn't do it on purpose. Yi Siki's voice deepened. That's how I convinced myself to forgive him, but I still feel a knot in my heart. Every time he wants to hug me, I feel like he's hugged another woman in the same way. I feel disgusted. Xia Dong was silent for a moment before she said, Yezi, give yourself some time. You will get better. Yi Siki tightened her grip on the phone. She forced a smile. I know. That's what he said too. Forget it, let's not talk about it anymore. I'm going to make dinner. He doesn't need to work overtime tonight, so he will be back early. All right then. Go ahead and do your work. Call me if anything happens. Xia Dong hung up the phone. She felt a little disappointed. The more you love someone, the easier it is to be hurt, right? Yi Siki put down the phone. She was also in a bad mood. She glanced at the clock on the wall. It was already past 6. Lin Shihao should be on his way back. She sighed silently and quickly walked to the kitchen. She wrapped the apron around her waist and started to prepare dinner. As she was cooking the braised fish, she heard the sound of the door opening. She smiled and called out to him as usual. Hubby, you're back? Lin Shihao acknowledged her and quickly walked to the kitchen door. He suddenly took out his right hand from behind his back. A bouquet of fiery red roses was blooming. He smiled. Honey, this is for you. Do you like it? Yi Siki was stunned. She pursed her lips and smiled. It's not a holiday today. Why did you buy flowers? I drove past the flower shop and suddenly thought that you would like it, so I bought it. Lin Shihao stuffed the roses into her arms and grabbed the spatula from her hand. He smiled. Go arrange the flowers. You haven't changed yet? Yi Siki couldn't help but turn around and say as he pushed her to the door. It's okay. Then put on the apron. Yi Siki put the flowers aside, took off her apron and handed it to him. Honey, help me put it on. Lin Shihao stood in front of the gas stove with the spatula and looked at her with a smile. She walked behind him and reached her hands to his waist. She tied the apron around his waist and tied a bow behind his back. After tying it, she was about to pull her hands back when he suddenly turned around and grabbed her hands. He whispered, Honey, how long has it been since we cooked together? She was in a daze for a moment. She smiled. It seems like it's been a few years. Ever since I was promoted to the head of the obstetrics and gynecology department, I have to work overtime every day. I even have to work overtime on weekends. I haven't taken you and Nyonyo out for a long time. He gently stroked the hair by her ear. Have you ever resented me? She held his hand. I resented you at first, but I stopped resenting you later. I know that you want Nyonyo and I to live a better life. Silly wife. Lin Shihao pulled her into his arms and kissed her forehead. She smiled and pushed him. The fish is going to be burned. Okay, I'll cook seriously. Lin Shihao smiled and let go of her. He turned around and scooped the fish from the pot onto a plate. Yi Siki found a vase and filled it with water. She put the roses in it and then placed the vase on the table in the living room. She washed her hands, set the table, and went to Nyonyo's room to call her daughter to eat. The family of 3 sat around the dining table. Nyonyo's childish voice told her about what happened in school. Lin Shihao was a good listener. He asked a few questions from time to time. When they talked about something interesting, the father and daughter laughed happily. Yi Siki smiled when she saw how happy they were. After dinner, Lin Shihao volunteered to wash the dishes. He teased, Honey, washing dishes is a technical job. You can't go wrong if you leave it to me. Yi Siki smiled and said, You're joking. I'll check it later. If it's not clean, you can wash it again. Please don't worry, my dear wife. I'll do my best to wash it clean. Lin Shihao made an exaggerated salute. Nyonyo smiled and leaned into Yi Siki's arms. She asked mischievously, Mommy, is Daddy possessed by an alien? The person we're seeing now is definitely not the real Daddy, right? Yi Siki couldn't help but laugh. She rubbed her daughter's hair. Your daddy suddenly became kind. You two can laugh at me as much as you want. I'll just stay with those bowls and chopsticks. Lin Shihao shook his head and smiled. His eyes were full of love and gentleness. The mother and daughter laughed together. Lin Shihao was busy in the kitchen. His handsome figure appeared even more charming under the soft light. Yi Siki looked at him. She knew that he had been working hard these days. He was working hard to make up for his past shortcomings. He was really determined to start over. She should also work hard. After the kitchen was tidied up, the family of 3 sat on the sofa and watched TV. Yi Siki hugged her daughter. Lin Shihao deliberately moved closer to her. She pretended not to notice, but her body quietly leaned against his chest. Lin Shihao reached out and hugged her tightly. The TV was playing a comedy movie. Yi Siki and Nyonyo giggled. Lin Shihao hugged them in his arms and swore to himself that this time, he would protect this happiness. After the movie, Yi Siki took Nyonyo to the bathroom to take a shower. Lin Shihao suddenly received a call from Bai Meiwei. He instinctively looked in the direction of the bathroom. He walked into the bedroom and closed the door. "Meiwei, what's the matter?" Bai Meiwei laughed foolishly. "Senior, I want to see you." Lin Shihao frowned. "Meiwei, it's already very late. If there's anything, we can talk about it at work tomorrow." Her laughter turned into sobs. "But I want to see you now." Lin Shihao heard the noise on her end. His frown deepened. He asked in a low voice, "Where are you now?" She answered blankly, "At the bar." "You're drunk." Lin Shihao suppressed his anger. "Leave the bar now and go home." Bai Meiwei leaned against the bar counter and grabbed her hair painfully. She said drunkenly, "If you don't come to see me, I won't go home." Lin Shihao paused and said in a low voice, "I won't go to see you." Without waiting for her reply, he hung up the phone. He paced back and forth in the room a few times. He was still a little worried about her. After thinking about it, he finally called the Bai family's landline. The servant knew Lin Shihao. When he heard that Miss was drunk at the bar, he immediately expressed his gratitude and said that he would contact her to bring her home. When Lin Shihao ended the call, Yi Siki opened the bedroom door and walked in while drying her hair. She smiled and said, "The 2 of us are out. Hurry and go take a shower." "Okay, I'll go right away." Lin Shihao placed the phone on the bedside. After thinking about it, he chose to tell her. "Honey, Meiwei called me just now. She's drunk. I contacted the Bai family and asked them to pick her up." "Okay, I got it." Yi Siki felt a little uncomfortable. However, since he took the initiative to tell her, she still smiled and said gently, "Hurry and go take a shower." After Lin Shihao went to the bathroom to take a shower, Yi Siki sat on the bed in a daze for a while. Finally, she sighed deeply. What was wrong with her? Since she had decided to work hard to redeem herself, she should be more relaxed. Shihao also told her everything. This was a good sign. Attention, Shinwoo 799. Chapter 226. Su Yunxian's schizophrenia symptoms became more serious. Every time Bailey Han visited her, she was very happy at first, but suddenly she asked him indifferently, "Who is he?" When she heard him say his name, she started crying again. She kept saying that he had abandoned her and that she wasn't good enough for him. After repeating this several times, Bailey Han didn't dare to say his name, fearing that it would irritate her. However, she didn't give up and drove him out of the ward without getting an answer. The Su family was very puzzled and asked the doctor, "Doctor, Yunxian's condition had improved before. Why did it suddenly worsen?" The doctor said that the patient might have suffered too much psychological damage in the past. During the treatment, she remembered some bad memories. Those injuries were beyond her mental endurance, so she removed those painful memories or consciousness activities from the entire mental plane to protect herself. However, because of this, she lost her integrity. To put it simply, Su Yunxian had already suffered from schizophrenia. She could have 2 or more different personalities at the same time. The doctor said that Su Yunxian's condition was mainly caused by harmful stimulation. She needed psychological treatment. The family members should create a relaxed and warm environment for her and not stimulate her emotions. The Su family trembled with fear. They didn't expect their daughter's condition to be so serious. Bailey Han, who accompanied them, also became very depressed after hearing the doctor's words. The next day, Bailey Han came to the hospital to visit Su Yunxian as promised. He knocked on the door of the ward, but didn't hear any response. He thought that the nurse was not inside now. He turned the doorknob, opened the door and walked in. The ward was empty, and there was no one in the bed. Bailey Han walked quickly to the bathroom and knocked on the door. "Yunqian, are you inside?" No one responded. He frowned and turned the doorknob. The door was locked from the inside. Suddenly, he heard the sound of something falling to the ground. A bad premonition immediately rose from his heart. He knocked hard on the door. "Yunqian, what are you doing inside? Open the door." It was dead silent inside. Feeling even more uneasy, Bailey Han made up his mind. He lifted his foot and kicked the door with all his might, making a loud noise. He kicked the door twice more, and with a bang, the door finally opened. Seeing the scene in front of him, his heart tightened. Su Yunqian was wearing a white bathrobe and lying in the bathtub. Her wrist had been cut, and blood was dripping from her fingers into the bathtub, dyeing the water red. Su Yunqian had fainted due to the loss of blood. A small knife fell on the floor, still stained with blood. His heart almost jumped out of his chest. He hurriedly picked her up from the bathtub and put her back on the bed. He pressed the emergency button on the bedside. The doctors and nurses quickly rushed over. Fortunately, the wound was not very deep and the bleeding stopped very quickly. The doctor criticized the Su family members and the nurses who had rushed over after hearing the news. "The patient is unconscious. How could you leave such a dangerous thing in her ward?" Because Su Yunqian was mentally ill and emotionally unstable, she could commit suicide or hurt others. Therefore, sharp weapons such as fruit knives were strictly prohibited in her room. Everyone knew this, and they were very careful not to bring any knives or other weapons in. Who brought in the small knife she used to cut her wrist? Everyone looked at each other and shook their heads. In the end, they unanimously guessed that Su Yunqian might have secretly brought it in before she was hospitalized. Thinking of this, everyone broke out in a cold sweat. If they hadn't discovered it in time, it was hard to say what would have happened. Su Yunqian's face was pale and bloodless. Even though she was unconscious, her brows were tightly knitted. Mrs. Su held back her tears. With the help of the nurses, they helped her change out of her wet clothes and changed the wet sheets and quilt. "Go to the company first. Your aunt and I will take care of her." Outside the corridor, Su Bolin looked serious. Bailey Han nodded. "I'll come to see her after work. Uncle, call me if you need anything." On the way to the company, Bailey Han's face was dark. His hands tightly held the steering wheel. His heart was still shocked and pained by the scene of Su Yunqian's suicide. Xia Dong knew that Bailey Han had been working hard recently. He had been running between the hospital and the company. Every time he came back from the hospital, he would be especially quiet. Although he didn't say anything in front of his family, she knew that he was under a lot of pressure. Xia Dong specially made ginseng chicken soup and made his favorite dishes. She prepared a lunchbox and drove to his company at lunchtime. She carried the lunchbox upstairs. The old employees all knew her and greeted her politely. She was still a little uncomfortable. This was the first time she came to the company to look for him after getting married. Linda stood up with a smile. "Madam, the president is still in a meeting. The meeting will be over in about 10 minutes. Do you want me to inform the president?" Xia Dong smiled politely. "No need. I'll go to his office and wait for a while. When he finishes the meeting, don't tell him that I'm here." Linda made an okay gesture and smiled. "Understood." Xia Dong said, "Thank you." When Bailey Han walked into the office, Xia Dong had already placed the dishes on the coffee table. The milky white chicken soup was fragrant, and the green vegetables were stir-fried with mushrooms. It was very appetizing just by looking at it. "Honey, why are you here?" Bailey Han's lips curved and his eyes were filled with surprise. Xia Dong walked forward and helped him loosen his tie. She smiled and said, "I saw that you've been too busy recently and was worried that you didn't eat properly, so I prepared a lunchbox." "It's a love lunchbox." His slender fingers scratched her perky nose. She smiled. "If you say so." She hugged his arm and pulled him to the table. She stuffed a pair of chopsticks into his hands. "Hurry up and eat. It's going to get cold." Eat with me. It's boring to eat alone. Bailey Han stuffed the chopsticks back to her and picked up the other pair on the table. He chuckled. Why don't you come to have lunch with me every day from now on? Xia Dong thought about the expressions of the employees when they saw her and couldn't help but shiver. It's better to do this kind of thing once in a while. If I come every day, it won't affect your image in the eyes of the employees. Bailey Han drank a mouthful of the delicious chicken soup and looked slightly wronged. What if I like the dishes you cook? She rolled her eyes and smiled mischievously. Then wait for me to cook for you tonight. But I want to eat lunch too. His eyes were filled with smiles as he stared into her eyes. She pinched his high nose and smiled. Then there's no other way. Naughty. He ruffled her hair. She rolled her eyes and said, How about this? After I'm done cooking, I'll send it to the front desk downstairs and you can ask Linda to bring it up for you. Silly, I'm just teasing you. I can't bear to let my wife cook every day. He smiled gently. After the meal, Xia Dong took out the fruit salad from the lunchbox. She picked up a piece of fruit with a fork and brought it to his lips. He smiled and opened his mouth to take the fruit. Suddenly, he saw her frowning and covering her stomach with her left hand. He quickly swallowed the fruit and asked anxiously, What's wrong? Does your stomach hurt? She relaxed her brows and smiled. It's nothing. The baby just moved a little. Only then did Bailey Han's anxious heart relax. Pleasantly surprised, he placed his palm on her abdomen. It was a pity that he didn't feel anything. However, this didn't hinder his excitement as he said gently, Baby, I'm Daddy. Xia Dong was amused. The baby can't hear you yet. He can hear you. Bailey Han simply squatted in front of her and gently pressed his face against her abdomen. He said gently, Baby, I'm Daddy. If you hear my voice, kick me with your little feet. The baby still didn't move. Bailey Han was a little disappointed. Although he was already a father of 3 children, this was the first time he had accompanied his pregnant wife and experienced the process from pregnancy to childbirth. So every time the baby moved a little, he was very excited and couldn't wait for the baby to communicate with him immediately. He was about to move his face away when he suddenly felt her stomach move. He shouted happily, Honey, honey, the baby is kicking me. He heard me. He was like a child, smiling brightly. Xia Dong couldn't help but laugh. Yes, the baby must have heard you. Bailey Han gently stroked her stomach. Baby, you have to be gigai. Don't let mommy work too hard. Hubby, do you want the baby to be a boy or a girl? He sat beside her and hugged her. Both are fine. If it's a girl, I'll protect you. If it's a boy, I'll protect you with him. He kissed her cheek and added, Also, Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao can protect the 3 of you together. She leaned comfortably in his arms. The 2 people who knew each other and loved each other, even if they leaned together quietly, without saying or doing anything, time passed so quickly. Before they knew it, an hour had passed. Xia Dong pushed his arm and said gently, Hubby, it's time for you to work. I'll go back first. He kissed her lips like a shameless child and sighed unhappily. I really don't want you to leave. She smiled. That doesn't sound like something you would say. Gigai, be good. I'll cook something good for you when we get home tonight. She kissed his cheek. The smile on his face gradually faded and he said in a deep voice, Honey, I have to go to the hospital after work. Xia Dong asked worriedly, Is Su Yunxian's condition not too good? He nodded. She committed suicide this morning. Fortunately, I found out early. She didn't know how to comfort him. She hugged his waist and said gently, Go ahead. Drive carefully. I'll wait for you to come back. He hugged her tightly gratefully. Beauty novel, Song Shu 566. Chapter 227. Xia Dong told Yi Siki about this matter. Yi Siki scolded her, saying that only a foolish woman like her would push her husband to her love rival. She retorted, If you were me, what would you do? Don't you allow Ahan to see her? Yi Siki paused and said, Okay, I'm also a foolish woman. If she stopped her husband and prevented him from seeing her, her husband would only think that she was unreasonable. Bailey Han drove directly to the hospital after work. Mrs. Su sat by Su Yunqian's bed to accompany her. When she saw him come in, she found an excuse to leave. Su Yunqian lay quietly on the bed, her face still very pale. She smiled slightly. Han, I had a dream this afternoon. He sat beside her. What did you dream of? Her eyes were a little absent-minded, and her smile was faint. I dreamed that we were watching the sunrise by the sea. I was leaning in your arms. You said that you would accompany me to watch the sunrise every morning. He was silent. Su Yunqian hugged his arm, her cheek gently rubbing against his arm. She whispered, Han, let's go watch the sunrise tomorrow morning, okay? Bailey Han's body stiffened. After a moment of silence, he whispered, Yunqian, I'm sorry. I can't watch the sunrise with you anymore. The smile on her face suddenly disappeared, and she cried sadly. Why am I still alive? Why don't you let me die? She suddenly became emotional. She jumped out of bed and ran out crazily. Bailey Han hurriedly grabbed her arms to stop her from hurting herself. Yunqian, don't be agitated. Take a deep breath. Everything will be okay. She cried and shook her head, as if her mind had become very clear. No, it won't be okay anymore. I'm not the same person as before. Yunqian, listen to me. It will all pass. Bailey Han held her shoulders and comforted her softly. Look, we all care about you. In our eyes, you will always be the beautiful and charming Su Yunqian. You lied to me. If I was still the Su Yunqian of the past, why would you abandon me? Why won't you watch the sunrise with me? She grabbed his arm and shook it hard. Bailey Han's thin lips were tightly pursed and his deep eyes were as dark as the sea. Su Yunqian suddenly froze and stared at him blankly. Han, when did you come? His expression did not change as he said indifferently, I just arrived. She nodded obediently. Suddenly, she lowered her head and stared at her bare feet. Why am I standing on the ground barefoot? He did not answer her question. Instead, he said gently, I'll help you back to the bed. Okay. She obediently climbed onto the bed and leaned against the pillow. She smiled sweetly. Han, I want to listen to a story. What story do you want to hear? She thought about it seriously and blinked. The story of Snow White. He smiled. All right, I'll tell you. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful princess. His deep and magnetic voice rang in the empty ward. After the story was told, she widened her eyes and asked curiously, why did the Empress want to kill Snow White? He explained, because Snow White was more beautiful than the Empress. If Snow White was killed, she would be the most beautiful person in the world. She nodded in understanding. The Empress is so silly. He glanced at his watch. Are you sleepy now? Do you want to sleep? I want to hear another story. What do you want to hear? The story of Cinderella. All right. Bailey Han began to feel lucky. In order to be a good father, he had deliberately read a lot of fairy tales. It was already past 8 and Bailey Han had not returned. Xia Dong wanted to call him to ask, but she was afraid that he would misunderstand that she was rushing him home, so she gave up the idea. Thus, she sat in the living room and waited for him. After telling the story of Cinderella, Bailey Han told another story. Su Yunqian finally slowly closed her eyes and fell asleep. He sat beside her and made sure that she was sound asleep before he got up. Just as he walked to the door, he suddenly heard her scream in horror. Go away, don't touch me. Go away. Bailey Han's heart ached. He turned around and saw that she had actually turned over and sat up. Her eyes were still tightly shut, but the horror on her face was unmistakable. She waved her hands wildly in the air. Go away, go away. He clenched his fists, turned around, and walked quickly to her side. He held her shoulders and said gently, Yunqian, don't be afraid. No one will hurt you. Sob sob. It's so scary. She suddenly hugged his waist and sobbed. Bailey Han's body stiffened. He stretched out his hands to push her away, but in the end, he controlled himself. He patted her back gently with his right hand and said softly, It's okay, it's okay. She cried for a while and finally calmed down. He looked down at her. Her eyes were still tightly shut and her cheeks were stained with tears. He pulled out a tissue and gently wiped the tears on her face. He held her shoulders and wanted to put her back on the bed, but her hands were tightly wrapped around his waist. He gently held her hands and slowly pried them away. Then, he helped her lie back on the bed and covered her with the quilt. Bailey Han walked out of the ward. Mrs. Su stood up from the chair and said, Sorry to trouble you. Auntie, you're welcome. You should go back. It's late. You should go back early too. Okay, I'll go in and take a look. Then I'll leave. Bailey Han said, Do you need me to drive you home? Mrs. Su smiled. No, it's okay. I drove here myself. It was already 9 o'clock when Bailey Han returned to the old mansion. As soon as he walked into the living room, he saw Xia Dong sitting on the sofa reading a magazine. She heard his footsteps and immediately looked up with a smile. Honey, you're back. Why didn't you go upstairs? He kissed her cheek. It was cold. He frowned and touched her forehead. It's getting cold. Why don't you wear more clothes? I'm not cold. She was wearing a knitted cardigan. It was very warm, but after sitting in the living room for so long, it was inevitable that her body was cold. He took off his suit jacket and put it on her shoulders. It's night now. Be careful not to catch a cold. Have you had dinner? He chuckled. Didn't you say that you would make me something delicious tonight? I've been waiting on an empty stomach. Xia Dong couldn't help but complain. It's so late. Why don't you eat something first? It's not good for your stomach. The food is cold. I'll heat it up for you. She was about to get up when he grabbed her hand. Let the servants do it. A few minutes later, the servants brought the heated food to the dining room. He looked at the rich dishes and smiled. They're all my favorites. Honey, thank you for your hard work. Drink some soup first to warm your stomach. Xia Dong scooped a bowl of soup for him and placed it in front of him. After dinner, she walked behind him and put her hands on his shoulders. Hubby, let me massage your shoulders. She felt sorry for him when she saw him running around every day. He gladly accepted his wife's thoughtfulness. Her soft hands massaged his shoulders. The strength was just right and it was very comfortable. He leaned back in the chair and closed his eyes. How's Xiao Guai today? Yeah. I took Xiao Guai to the kindergarten today. Xia Dong paused and said, Brother Xin is here too. Xiao Guai misses him a lot. It's good for them to meet. Bailey Han was a little jealous that his daughter liked Mika Kito, but he did not stop them from meeting. When Xia Dong told him last night that Mika Kito wanted to meet Xiao Guai, he only hesitated for a second before agreeing. Xia Dong laughed softly. Gigai wanted me to tell you that she still likes Daddy the most. He suddenly opened his eyes and turned to ask her, Really? He thought his daughter liked Mika Kito the most. She smiled and nodded. Yeah. Gigai also said that she wants to listen to you tell her a story tonight. You have to do your homework in advance. Bailey Han raised his eyebrows proudly. I've memorized all of Grimm's fairy tales. Xia Dong smiled meaningfully. You only memorized Grimm's fairy tales? That's not enough. A certain father was so excited that he did not take his wife's kind reminder to heart. He hurried upstairs to tell his daughter a bedtime story so that he could coax her to sleep. Xiao Guai played with her 2 older brothers for a while. When she heard that Daddy was back and wanted to tell a story, Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi also came over to join in the fun. The 3 little guys lay side by side on the bed, blinking their 3 pairs of similar big eyes as they stared seriously at Bailey Han. Faced with 3 pairs of pure black eyes, Bailey Han actually felt guilty. He coughed and said, What story do you want to hear? Xiao Bao puffed up her cheeks. I want to hear a fairy tale. Something like the 7 fairies or the legend of the white snake will do. Xiao Yi's long eyelashes fluttered. I want to hear a historical story. Something like the Chronicles of the Grand Historian or the Romance of the 3 Kingdoms will do. Xiao Guai blinked. I want to hear a story from the Arabian Nights. Last time, Mommy told me the story of Aladdin and the magic lamp. Mommy said that the next story would be the story of Sinbad the Navigator. Daddy, I want to hear it. The smile on Bailey Han's face froze, and the corners of his mouth twitched. Don't you want to hear the story of Snow White and Cinderella? Tiske. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao showed a disdainful expression. We don't want to hear such an old-fashioned story. Yeah, we've heard it so many times that I can tell it now. Xiao Guai reached out her small hand and touched the back of Bailey Han's hand. She comforted him obediently. Daddy, don't be sad. It's okay that you don't know how to tell stories. I still like you the most. Bailey Han was hurt. Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi got out of bed. Xiao Bao sighed. Aya, we can't hear the story anymore. Let's go back. Xiao Yi shushed her. Don't say it so loudly. Daddy will be sad if he hears it. Bailey Han's face darkened. These two brats were too much. They actually looked down on him in front of him. He coughed and said sternly, "What's so good about those stories? Daddy will tell you about my personal experience. This is the story of my adventures when I was 16 years old." Wow, this is interesting. I want to hear it. Hurry up and lie back down. Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi quickly crawled back into bed. Xinwu 799. Chapter 228. The corners of Bailey Han's lips curled up as he slowly recounted what he had experienced. Considering that they were still young, he only briefly talked about the bloody scenes. He mainly talked about how he had made use of the surrounding environment to survive on the deserted island and how he had avoided danger time and time again. This was the first time he had recounted that experience in detail to others. He did not expect that the audience would be 3 children. He curled his lips in amusement. Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi looked at him with admiration. Xiao Yi said, "Daddy, you're so awesome. I want to be like you and be a great man." Xiao Bao puffed up her cheeks. "Daddy, just you wait. I'll become as strong as you." Xiao Guai said with heartache, "Daddy, are you afraid?" Daddy is not afraid because Daddy has you 3 cute guardian angels. Bailey Han kissed her tender little face and stroked Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi's heads. He smiled and said, "Go back to your room and rest. Don't disturb your little sister anymore." Got it. After coaxing their daughters to sleep, the couple washed up and went to bed. Bailey Han hugged his wife's soft body in satisfaction and quickly fell asleep. Bailey Han was dreaming. In his dream, he was standing in a dark basement. Su Yunqian was tied to a chair. She was crying sadly and begging for help. He walked forward and wanted to untie the rope on her body, but when his fingers reached out, his fingers went straight through her body. No matter how many times he tried, he could not untie the rope. Bailey Han saw a tall man wearing a mask stride over. The man passed through his body and walked to Su Yunqian. He roughly untied the rope on her body, then pushed her to the ground and lay on top of her like a beast. Bailey Han pounced to hit the man, but his fists all went through his body. He could not touch the man at all. He could only watch as the man humiliated Su Yunqian. Her desperate eyes were deeply engraved in his heart. His heart ached so much that he could not breathe. He roared in pain. Suddenly, the scene changed. He was suddenly standing in the bathroom of the hospital. Su Yunqian was lying in the snow-white bathtub. The bathtub was full of blood. The wound on her wrist was still bleeding. She stared at him with a pair of big eyes and resentment. "It's all your fault. It's all your fault. You're the one who killed me." "No," Bailey Han sat up abruptly. His forehead was full of sweat. His heart was beating wildly in his chest, as if it was about to burst out. His head suddenly hurt. He held his head and breathed in pain. The pain lasted for a few minutes and gradually dissipated. His originally deep eyes became empty and lifeless. He lifted the quilt expressionlessly and got out of bed. His eyes did not look at the person beside him. As usual, he went into the bathroom to wash up and change his clothes. Then, he took the car keys and went out. Bang. The sound of the door closing woke Xia Dong up. She opened her eyes and felt that something was wrong. She touched the spot beside her and sat up abruptly. Bailey Han was gone. That loud sound just now, was it the sound of him closing the door and leaving? She glanced at the bedside clock. It was only 4 o'clock. Why did he get up so early? Moreover, after he got up in the past, his movements were very light. He would not wake her up at all. He was so abnormal today. Did something happen? Xia Dong's heart was full of questions. She did not continue to sleep. She hurriedly changed her clothes, grabbed her phone and car keys, and hurried downstairs. When she ran out of the door, Bailey Han's car had already slowly driven out of the garage. When the car passed by her, she called his name. He acted as if he did not hear her. His car window was open. At such a close distance, it was impossible for him not to hear her. Xia Dong's heart was faintly uneasy. She hurriedly ran into the garage and drove her car, following behind Bailey Han. There was about a few hundred meters between the two cars. Fortunately, there were fewer cars on the road in the early morning. She slightly sped up, and the distance between the two cars continued to shrink. Xia Dong stopped by the roadside and watched his car park in the hospital's parking lot. After he got out of the car, she also parked her car. Before she could chase after him and ask him, he had already strode into the hospital's lobby and quickly walked into the elevator. She knew that Su Yunqian was staying in this hospital, but she did not know which ward Su Yunqian was staying in. When she found the ward number from the nurse on duty and found the ward, the door was not locked. She opened a gap and a faint light poured out from inside the room. Xia Dong pushed the door open stiffly. The gap widened, and she could clearly see Su Yunqian leaning in Bailey Han's arms. Then she heard Bailey Han's voice. "It's cold by the sea. Bring a thick coat." "But I'll listen to you." Su Yunqian's voice was gentle. Xia Dong's heart tightened, and her hands clenched into fists. Clear footsteps could be heard. She quickly hid in the door of another ward. Bailey Han held Su Yunqian's waist, and the two of them slowly walked to the elevator. Their silhouettes gradually disappeared into the elevator. Xia Dong suddenly felt as if her legs were filled with lead. Every step was very difficult. However, no matter how difficult it was, she could not help but want to follow them and see what they would do. There were more and more cars on the road. Xia Dong followed Bailey Han's car unhurriedly. Bailey Han parked the car by the sea. Su Yunqian held his arm. The two of them walked on the plank road and leaned against the railing. Xia Dong looked out of the car window and saw their backs leaning against each other. Tears slowly flowed out of her eyes. Su Yunqian leaned in Bailey Han's arms and pointed to the place where the sea met the sky. She smiled innocently. "Look, the sun is climbing up the sea. It's so beautiful." Bailey Han hugged her shoulders tightly and smiled gently. "It's very beautiful." At the place where the sky met the sea, the red sun slowly climbed up. The red clouds slowly filled the dark blue sky and gradually glowed. The bright rays reflected on the sea and complemented each other. It was a spectacular sight. Facing such a beautiful scene, Xia Dong did not feel any joy in her heart. She was full of sadness, and her face was wet with tears. The sun had completely jumped out of the sea, and the brilliant golden color dyed half the sky red. "Han, come and watch the sunrise with me in the future, okay?" Su Yunqian looked up at his handsome side profile. Bailey Han lowered his eyes and looked at her beautiful face. His lips were brimming with a smile. "All right, whenever you want to see it, I'll accompany you. You're so good to me." Su Yunqian raised her head and kissed him on the chin. She smiled as brightly as a child. He tightened his arms around her shoulders and said softly, "Are you hungry? I'll take you to eat something delicious." But she hugged him and cheered. "I'm so happy. Let's go." He ruffled her hair and walked back with her in his arms. They did not return to the car. Instead, they walked to a shop by the sea. The shop was not big and was elegantly decorated. It specialized in selling breakfast. Many people who went to the sea to watch the sunrise enjoyed a delicious breakfast here. The table by the window also had a beautiful view of the sea. Bailey Han and the others were lucky. There was a table near the window left. He handed her the menu. "What do you want to eat?" She pointed at the menu happily. I want to eat seafood casserole porridge. I also want to eat fragrant soup dumplings and shumai." "Okay." Bailey Han returned the menu to the waiter and said the names of the dishes. After about 10 minutes, the waiter brought up the food they ordered. The seafood porridge had just been cooked. It was boiling hot and the aroma was overflowing. She puffed up her cheeks and frowned. It's so hot. Don't worry. Wait for the porridge to cool down. Eat the shumai first. Bailey Han picked up a shumai with his chopsticks and placed it on her plate. Then he scooped out a small bowl of porridge from the casserole and stirred it gently with a spoon. Su Yunqian blew on the shumai and then carefully took a bite. Her eyes immediately widened. It's delicious. Bailey Han chuckled. Eat slowly. Don't burn yourself. He did not stop stirring the porridge in the bowl. After she finished a shumai and a soup dumpling, he placed the small bowl in front of her. It's not hot anymore. You can eat now. She smiled brightly. Thank you. She ate without caring about her image. She was very different from the ladylike her in the past. Perhaps the dominant personality now was the pure and cheerful personality. Her cheeks were stained with oil. Bailey Han could not help but chuckle. He pulled out a tissue and reached out to wipe her face. She smiled embarrassedly. Her cheeks were tinged with a faint pink color. This intimate scene fell into Xia Dong's eyes without missing a single detail. She gripped the steering wheel tightly with both hands and bit her lower lip. She was afraid that she would not be able to control herself and rush up to him. Xia Dong shook her head fiercely. She should believe that this scene was fake. An must have his reasons. He would not betray her. She followed him all the way and watched him send her back to the hospital. She watched him come out of the hospital building and drive to the company. She parked the car in the company's parking lot. After hesitating for a long time, she still did not have the courage to ask him clearly. Xia Dong took out her phone and dialed his number. Bailey Han heard his phone ring. He glanced at the caller ID. Dear wife. He frowned. Whose number was this? Why was there such a nickname? He pressed the answer button and said calmly, Who is this? Xia Dong's heart suddenly tightened. She almost stopped breathing. A scary thought appeared in her mind. After waiting for 2 seconds, there was no reply. He said in a more serious tone, I'm Bailey Han. For you. Xia Dong gripped her phone tightly and tried to make her voice sound calm. I'm Xia Dong. I don't know you, he replied bluntly. Why are you looking for me? Her voice was dry as she said, Nothing. I called the wrong number. Sorry. Without waiting for him to speak, she hung up in a panic. She covered her face with both hands and wailed. The thing she was worried about had finally happened again. He had become that Bailey Han who did not know her. Attention, Hongcha 866. Chapter 229. Bailey Han looked at the title, Dear Wife, on his phone and frowned. Just then, Linda came in to deliver some documents. He looked up and asked, Linda, I'm married? Linda was shocked. President, did I do something wrong? She hurriedly tried to figure out when she had accidentally revealed her admiration for the CEO. Otherwise, why would he suddenly ask such a strange question? Bailey Han's face darkened. Answer my question. Linda was about to cry. President, of course you're married. Bailey Han's eyes narrowed. When did this happen? What's her name? Linda felt like 1,000 horses were galloping in her heart. The president was flirting with her. He was really flirting with her. But he was the boss. Even if he was flirting with her, she had to pretend that she was willing to do it. You got married at the beginning of this month. Your wife's name is Xia Dong. Xia Dong? Yes, that's right. Bailey Han stood up abruptly, his entire body exuding a terrifying aura. Linda was so shocked that she took 2 steps back. Xia, what are you doing? As Bailey Han walked closer, Linda's mind raced. If he pounced on her, should she reject him or give in? Unexpectedly, he suddenly pulled her away and opened the office door. He strode out and said coldly, I'm going home. There's something I need Lu Zihao to deal with. Bailey Han's aura was fierce. As he walked, everyone avoided him. His handsome face was as cold as the sky before a storm. He sped all the way into the living room and saw old Madam and old Master sitting on the sofa. He asked in a deep voice, Grandma, am I married? Old Madam was stunned. Fortunately, She was quick-witted and realized that something was wrong. She looked at him suspiciously. "What's the matter?" Bailey Hans stared at her condescendingly and exuded an oppressive aura. "Why don't I remember that I'm married?" Old Madam froze. It seemed that something in his brain was acting up again and his memory was becoming chaotic. "Grandma, tell me what happened to me." Bailey Han had already realized that something was wrong with him. He remembered that Su Yunqian had been kidnapped and that she had been hospitalized, but he couldn't remember why she had been kidnapped. Every time he tried to recall, his brain seemed to be shrouded in fog. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't clear the fog and couldn't see clearly what was underneath. The old lady was silent for 2 seconds before she said, Your memory isn't very good after the car accident. This is a small matter. It's okay." "How is this a small matter? I don't remember what happened before the accident. I don't even remember that I got married." Bailey Han was very agitated. He suppressed his emotions and growled, "Grandma, are you hiding something from me?" Calm down first. Don't get agitated," the old madam said anxiously. "Sit down first. We'll talk about it slowly." Bailey Han sat on the sofa opposite her with a sullen face. "Grandma, you have to make things clear today." The old madam held her forehead and hesitated. She didn't know if she should tell them about it. There was silence in the living room. Suddenly, the crisp sound of footsteps came from the door. Bailey Han looked up and saw a woman in a beige knitted cardigan walk in. He stared at her with his deep eyes. In his memory, he had never seen her before. Could she be his forgotten wife? Xia Dong stopped in her tracks. She hadn't expected Bailey Han to come home so suddenly. Was she going to pretend that she didn't know him now? Why was he looking at her with such a gaze? It was like a whirlpool that was going to suck her whole body in. She forced a smile and bowed politely. "Old Madam, young master." When the old madam heard Xia Dong call them that, she knew that she had discovered something strange about Bailey Han. She sighed silently and said, "Xia Dong, come and sit." Xia Dong deliberately sat further away from Bailey Han. From the moment she walked in until she sat down, Bailey Han's gaze followed her. He questioned her as if he was interrogating a criminal. "You're Xia Dong. Are you my wife?" Xia Dong was stunned. She didn't know where he found out about this. He looked at her coldly. "Is that so?" Xia Dong glanced at the old madam. Seeing that she didn't object, she nodded. "I am." "Then tell me, why don't I remember our marriage? Why have I forgotten so many things?" "I can't say," he said coldly. "If that's the case, then let's get a divorce. You're not the one I love." His heartless words were like a sharp knife stabbing into her heart. Even though she knew that he didn't remember her, she couldn't help but feel sad. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, and she couldn't say a word for a long time. The old madam had a headache. After holding it in for a long time, she couldn't help but say, I object. You can't divorce Xia Dong." "Then tell me the truth." Bailey Han's anger had reached its peak. He was suddenly told that he was married to a stranger that he couldn't remember at all. This anger was driving him crazy. The old madam's lips moved as if she wanted to say something, but Xia Dong suddenly stopped her and said in a low voice, "Grandma, I agree to the divorce." She looked down to hide the deep sorrow in her eyes. She didn't look at them anymore. She got up and went upstairs. With her back facing them, tears fell quietly, but her voice sounded very calm. "Let's get the divorce done today. I'll go upstairs to prepare." The old madam called out to her back, "Xia Dong." Xia Dong paused in her footsteps. Finally, she lifted her foot and said, "Grandma, I'll go upstairs first." The living room returned to dead silence. The old madam rubbed her eyebrows and sighed. Trust me. We didn't tell you the truth for your own good. You married Xia Dong because you love her. Don't force her, and don't talk about divorcing her again. Otherwise, you'll regret it in the future." Bailey Han's face was cold. He said in a low voice, "I can't let Yunqian down." The old madam sighed heavily. "You broke up with Yunqian a long time ago. You married Xia Dong after you broke up. You didn't let Yunqian down at all." Bailey Han's mind was in a mess. Everyone told him that he married Xia Dong because he loved her, but he had no impression of it at all. Thinking of the hurt Yunqian had suffered, he couldn't abandon her now. He didn't listen to the old madam's advice anymore. He got up and went upstairs. The bedroom door wasn't locked. After he pushed it open, he saw a large wedding photo hanging on the wall beside the bed. In the photo, he was hugging Xia Dong from behind. Xia Dong leaned on his chest with a sweet smile on her face. He also had a smile on his face and his eyes were very gentle. In her impression, he rarely showed such a bright smile. Perhaps he loved her when they married, but why didn't he have any impression of it at all? Bailey Han pinched the space between his eyebrows. His heart was filled with irritation. Xia Dong wasn't in the room. He heard the sound of running water from the bathroom. He knocked on the door. The sound of running water became softer. Xia Dong's hoarse voice came through. "I'll be out soon." After about a minute, Xia Dong walked out of the bathroom. Her eyes were red. She forced a smile. "Wait for me. I'll go get the marriage certificate and the household register." With these things, she could go through the divorce procedures. He pursed his lips and said indifferently, "There's also the divorce agreement." She smiled bitterly. "You write it? I don't want anything. I just want the custody of the 3 children." There was an explosion in Bailey Han's head. His entire body froze and his face was ashen. Children. They actually had children. Moreover, it was 3 children. After Xia Dong said it, she realized that something was wrong, but it was too late to change her words. She saw him sitting on the sofa in a daze and hurriedly supported his arm. How are you? Are you all right?" Bailey Han suddenly grabbed her wrist. The hostility in his body suddenly rose and his eyes were like a bloodthirsty leopard as he stared at her. "If you don't tell me the truth, don't even think about getting custody of the 3 children. Must you force me like this?" On one hand, it was his safety. On the other hand, it was the custody of the 3 children. Was he forcing her to death? "Tell me." He stared at her fiercely. The strength in his hand increased and a sharp pain was transmitted from her wrist to her brain. She endured the pain and her eyes were filled with tears. I beg you. Don't force me anymore. I beg you." Her eyes were filled with pain. Her pleading voice gave him a sense of déjà vu. He angrily flung her hand away. Because he used too much strength, she almost fell. Fortunately, she caught the back of the chair in time. She covered her abdomen with one hand as tears rolled down her face. His eyes followed her hand and only then did he notice that her abdomen was slightly bulging. It was a stark contrast to her delicate figure. His eyes narrowed and he asked coldly, "You're pregnant?" Xia Dong bit her lip. "Yes." He was silent for a moment before he said coldly, "Abort the child." Xia Dong stared at him in disbelief. How can you say such a thing? The baby is more important. He's related to—" Her voice stopped abruptly. "What's related to?" He was relentless. Instead of answering, she asked, "Do you really want me to abort the child?" "I have no feelings for you. I also have no feelings for the baby in your stomach." Good, what you said is really good. I don't care how much of a jerk you are. I won't abort the child." Xia Dong's heart had already been broken by him. She didn't expect him to be so cold and heartless when he was a complete stranger. She didn't want to talk to him anymore. She went straight to the cloakroom to pack her luggage. Before he returned to normal, she would go back to her previous place to stay. Xia Dong was also very emotional. She quickly packed her clothes and stuffed all her belongings into her luggage. Meanwhile, Bailey Han sat on the fabric sofa and looked at her coldly. Awesome novel, Song Shu 566. Chapter 230. In less than 10 minutes, Xia Dong had finished packing her suitcase. She dragged the huge suitcase to the door without even looking at Bailey Han. The suitcase was very heavy, and it was very difficult for her to go down the stairs. She was already panting from exhaustion when she was only halfway down the stairs. Ever since she became pregnant, she lacked exercise and her physical fitness was not as good as before. "Eldest young madam, what are you doing?" The butler saw Xia Dong holding the big suitcase and was very anxious. He ran up to her and snatched the suitcase from her hands. How can you hold such a heavy thing? Xia Dong smiled. Butler, I want to stay at my aunt's house for 2 days. I'll have to trouble you to take care of Xiao Bao and the other 2 little guys. The butler was shocked. To put it nicely, she was going back to her mother's house. To put it bluntly, she was running away from home. He did not hear their conversation in the living room just now, so he naturally did not know that Bailey Han's memory was messed up again. He thought that the 2 of them were at loggerheads and hurriedly tried to persuade them. Eldest young madam, husband and wife quarrel at the head of the bed, but make up at the end. Eldest young master has a bad temper, so if he said anything that made you unhappy, please forgive him. Xia Dong smiled bitterly. Butler, I appreciate your kindness, but the matter between us is not that simple. Please tell old madam that I'm going back to my mother's house for 2 days. I'll find time to come back and see the children. She lifted the suitcase, but the old butler held it tightly and said, Eldest young madam, don't be anxious. Why don't you tell old madam not to leave? Xia Dong thought for a moment. If she just left like this, old madam might misunderstand. It was indeed safer to go upstairs and tell her. It was all her fault for being muddle-headed. The butler helped her to take the suitcase to the corridor and said, Eldest young madam, leave the suitcase here first. I'll take it down when you come down. Xia Dong said her thoughts in front of old madam. Grandma, I want to go back to my mother's house for 2 days. The old madam thought for a moment and said, Did Ahan say something? Xia Dong was already very tired and didn't want to explain any more, so she said, He's a little emotional right now. I want to wait for him to calm down. Maybe he'll be back to normal in 2 days. I'll come back then. Old madam sighed. All right, but you have to explain to your aunt and uncle properly. Don't let them misunderstand, understand? I understand. I won't let them worry. I'm not worried about Grandma, Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi, but I'll have to trouble you to take care of Xiao Guai. The old madam nodded. Don't worry. I'll comfort the 3 children. As for Xiao Guai, I'll be careful. I won't let her get hurt. The old madam thought for a moment and said, Do you want me to send you back? No need, Grandma. I can go back by myself. Then take care of yourself. You're not alone now. Don't think too much. When Ahan recovers, I'll ask him to come and pick you up. Got it, Grandma. The old madam was very thoughtful. She asked the housekeeper to take 2 gift boxes and put them in Xia Dong's car. You can't go home empty-handed. These gifts are for your aunt and uncle. Thank you, Grandma. Since Xia Dong said that she was going back to her parents' home, she had to accept the old madam's kindness. The housekeeper helped Xia Dong carry her suitcase downstairs. She stood in the empty living room and looked back at the staircase. She saw Bailey Han slowly walking down the stairs. His handsome face was cold and there was no warmth in his eyes. Xia Dong gritted her teeth and turned around. His cold voice came from behind her. Sign the divorce agreement and you can go. She looked at him waving the document in his hand and her body stiffened. She didn't expect him to have prepared the divorce agreement in such a short time. No, I can't sign it today. Xia Dong ignored him and walked out. The housekeeper hurried to catch up with her suitcase. He was afraid that Bailey Han would catch up and force Xia Dong to sign it. The 2 of them, together with 1 suitcase, hurried to the garage. When Xia Dong drove past the gate, she saw Bailey Han standing there like a stone statue. He looked at her expressionlessly as she drove further and further away. He didn't say anything to stop her. The white BMW soon disappeared from the manor. Bailey Han's fingers tightened, and he crumpled the divorce agreement into a ball and threw it into the trash can. It didn't matter if she didn't want to sign it. He had a way to make her sign it. Mommy. Xiao Guai was still in a daze. He crawled out of bed and rubbed his sleepy eyes with his little hands. He wiggled his little butt and walked out of the room, planning to go downstairs to find his mommy. She hadn't fully woken up and her little head was still a little dizzy. She covered her mouth with her little hand and yawned. She didn't pay attention to the front and accidentally bumped into a pair of long legs. Bailey Han was bumped into by a little girl wearing Pikachu pajamas. He looked down at the little ball beside his legs and frowned slightly. Xiao Guai raised her head and rubbed her aching forehead. She blinked her big watery eyes and said in a childish voice, "Daddy, didn't you go to the office today?" Bailey Han looked at her. Her cheeks were fair and tender, and her hair was adorably curly, but her hair was a little sparse. She lifted her little face and pouted cutely. Her soft little hands hugged his leg. "Daddy, you squatted down? My neck is so tired from looking at you like this." Her soft call of "Daddy" seemed to have crashed into his heart. He felt a warm current pass through his heart, and it was an indescribable feeling. He actually squatted down obediently and placed his hands on her delicate shoulders. He asked gently, "What's your name?" Xiao Guai pouted unhappily. "Daddy, you're so strange today. I'm Gigai." "You're Gigai." Bailey Han smiled faintly. "Do you want me to hug you?" The dissatisfaction on Xiao Guai's face immediately disappeared. She smiled and nodded. "Okay, I want Daddy to hug me." Bailey Han picked her up. Her soft little body was very light. To Bailey Han, she was like a feather. He frowned. "Gigai, why are you so light? Did you not eat properly?" Xiao Guai hugged his neck with both hands and puffed up her cheeks. "No, I eat properly. It's just that I'm always sick. That's why I'm so light." "Always sick?" Bailey Han looked at her carefully and realized that her face was indeed sickly pale. Her hair was also excessively thin. He couldn't help but feel a faint sense of pity. "What illness does Gigai have?" Xiao Guai's big eyes blinked. "I don't know. But I have to go to the hospital for chemotherapy every few days. The smell of medicine in the hospital is terrible." She fanned her little hand in front of her nose and stuck out her tongue exaggeratedly. She looked extremely cute. Bailey Han's heart sank. Chemotherapy. Only very serious illnesses required chemotherapy. What illness did Gigai have? He suddenly remembered that Xiaodong was very worried about the baby just now. She even said that the baby was very important. It was related to what? Was it about Xiao Guai? His mind was a mess. All the information rushed out and messed up in his mind. There were only a few words. He wanted to straighten it out, but he didn't know where to start. There seemed to be a blurry image flashing past. What was it? Bailey Han tried his best to grab hold of it. He was like a person who had fallen into a fog and suddenly saw a light. He rushed towards the light like the wind. Suddenly, there was a loud bang and his head started to hurt. "Daddy, what's wrong?" Xiao Guai saw that Bailey Han's expression was not right. He frowned in pain and cried out anxiously, "Daddy, where are you feeling unwell?" Bailey Han was in so much pain that his vision turned black. However, he knew that he couldn't fall down now. He was still holding Gigai in his arms. He resisted the intense dizziness, bent down, and put Xiao Guai on the ground. Then he fell down. "Daddy, Daddy," sob sob, "someone come, Daddy fainted." Xiao Guai was so scared that she started to cry. She shook Bailey Han's arm and shouted for help. When the servants heard her scream, they hurriedly ran upstairs. When they saw this scene, they were shocked and quickly called the others. Some were busy calling Suzhi, some ran upstairs to report to the old madam and Baijinxiu, and some helped Bailey Han up from the ground and sent him back to his room. Old madam hurried downstairs with Baijinxiu's help. When she saw Xiao Guai crying, she held Xiao Guai up with heartache and said gently, "Gigai, don't cry. Your daddy is fine. He'll get better soon." Xiao Guai's eyes were filled with tears. "Great-grandma, is Daddy really okay?" "Yes, trust me. He'll be fine. Your daddy is just too tired, so he needs to rest. Gigai, be good. Go out and play with Aunt Jing, okay?" Xiao Guai was very sensible. "Okay, Daddy needs to rest. Gigai won't disturb him." Bailey Jing picked up this sensible Xiao Bao with pity and rubbed her cheek. "Gigai, don't cry. Aunt Jing will tell you a story." Suzhi listened to Old Madam briefly talk about Bailey Han's situation and said, "Old Madam, Han's situation is getting worse. You have to make a decision as soon as possible." Other than sighing, Old Madam didn't know what to say. Xia Dong was worried that her aunt and the others would be worried, so she didn't go to their house. Instead, she drove the car to the neighborhood where she used to live. It took her a lot of effort to move her suitcase upstairs. The furniture in the room was all covered with white cloth. After lifting it, there wasn't much dust. She spent more than an hour cleaning the room and another half an hour arranging the clothes in the wardrobe. Then, she drove to the nearby supermarket to shop. In short, she didn't allow herself to be idle. She didn't want to let her imagination run wild when she was idle. She carried 2 big shopping bags upstairs. As soon as she entered the elevator, she ran into her former neighbor, Sister Wang. Sister Wang greeted her warmly. "Aya, Xiaoqi, why are you back?" Ad, Xinwu 799. Chapter 231. Xia Dong smiled. "I came back to take a look at the apartment." Sister Wang glanced at the bags she was carrying. "Why did you buy so many things?" Xia Dong ran her fingers through her hair. "I want to stay here for a couple of days." "Did you have a fight with your husband?" Xia Dong pursed her lips and did not deny it. "There's no overnight feud between husband and wife. Don't run away from home so easily after a fight. It will hurt your relationship as a couple." Sister Wang patted her shoulder and comforted her. "You should hurry back. Your husband might be looking for you right now." Xia Dong smiled. "Thank you, Sister Wang. I'll remember that. I'll get going first. Come down and play when you have time." She walked out of the elevator with the bags and took out the keys from her handbag. When she opened the door, she felt a little upset when she saw the empty room. Xia Dong had prepared a sumptuous dinner, but she had no appetite at all when faced with the table full of dishes. She put down her chopsticks and walked to the window unconsciously, wanting to see that familiar figure. There were cars driving in from the neighborhood downstairs. They were all people returning home after work, but there was no Rolls-Royce. She was about to leave when she saw a Lamborghini drive from the entrance of the neighborhood to the building downstairs. No one in the neighborhood owned such a flashy car. It was Bailey Yun. Her guess was right. 2 minutes later, a handsome figure stepped out of the car. His handsome appearance, elegant temperament, and luxurious and elegant outfit immediately attracted everyone's attention. He was like a celebrity who was the center of attention as he walked calmly into the building Xia Dong lived in. A few minutes later, Xia Dong looked at Bailey Yun who was standing at the door. She smiled and asked, "Why are you here?" Bailey Yun's beautiful foxy eyes twitched slightly. He said calmly, "Aren't you going to invite me in?" "Please come in." Xia Dong invited him in. Bailey Yun put his hands in his pockets and glanced around the dining room. "You haven't eaten yet?" "I was just about to eat." "Have you eaten?" Xia Dong poured him a glass of water. "Not yet." "If you don't mind, I want to eat with you." In fact, he was lying. He had already eaten dinner. "Of course I don't mind. Sit down first, I'll go get the rice." Xia Dong went to the kitchen, took a clean bowl and chopsticks, and served him a bowl of rice. Bailey Yun had changed. In the past, he would smile brightly and talk nonsense with her. Now, he was sitting in the chair, his handsome face expressionless. He was indifferent and calm, just like the second Bailey Han. The atmosphere was a little heavy. The two of them ate slowly, barely speaking. After dinner, Xia Dong cleaned up the dishes. Bailey Yun stopped her. "Let me do it. You're a guest. How can I let you clean up?" His entire aura had changed, and Xia Dong couldn't help but be polite to him. He looked at her with his slender eyes. Even though he had an extremely beautiful face, it still couldn't hide the frightening coldness. "Now, have I become a stranger to you?" She was stunned for a moment, then smiled at him. "No." "Then let go." His voice was cold and his gaze was icy. Xia Dong almost thought that the person standing in front of her was Bailey Han. She retracted her hands stiffly. "Then I'll have to trouble you." Bailey Yun put on an apron and washed the pots and pans in the kitchen. The clanking sounds were like a happy melody. The two of them sat on the sofa and ate fruits. Bailey Yun suddenly said, "I heard." She looked at him in confusion. "What?" His beautiful fox-like eyes were gloomy. "About you and Bailey Han quarreling and getting a divorce." Other than the few days when he first returned to the country, when he stayed at the Gu Mansion, he had moved back to his own place. He had gone to the Gu mansion just now to say goodbye to his family and planned to return to America. He didn't expect to hear that Xia Dong had moved back. She smiled awkwardly. Actually, it's not that serious. There's only a temporary problem between us. It'll be fine soon. He sneered. He's already treated you like that. Are you still unwilling to give up? He didn't do it on purpose. He paused and said, I'm going back to America tomorrow. Are you willing to go with me? She looked into his eyes seriously. Yun, I'm already your sister-in-law. This is a fact that will never change. His eyes were faintly cold and his words were icy. Even if Bailey Han wants to divorce you, you won't give up on him? I won't. I believe that he'll get better. These words were not only directed at him, but also to encourage herself. I understand. Bailey Yun got up and walked towards the door. With his back facing her, he said coldly, the last time I left, you didn't come to send me off. This time, you don't have to send me off either. Yun. Xia Dong followed behind him and chased him to the elevator. Yun, have a safe trip. The elevator door slowly closed. Bailey Yun thought that after experiencing heart-wrenching pain once, he would be able to let her go. However, when he really stood in front of her, he still couldn't suppress the strong desire to snatch her away. He could only use coldness to wrap himself up and hide his true thoughts. Sitting in the car, he leaned back against the seat and looked at himself in the mirror. His heart was filled with disgust. No matter how hard he worked, he couldn't compare to Bailey Han. He stepped on the accelerator and the Lamborghini sped toward the charm club. Xia Dong was the only one left in the empty room. She looked at the clock. Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi should have already returned home. If they found out that she wasn't around, would they be worried? Just as her thoughts were running wild, her phone suddenly rang. It was Xiao Bao's voice. Mom, why did you suddenly move back? The children didn't know that there was a foreign object in Bailey Han's brain. Xia Dong still hid it from them. She smiled and said, I just came to take a look at the old house. I'll be back in 2 days. Xiao Bao snorted, Mom, I already said that I'm not a 3-year-old child. Don't lie to me anymore. Dad suddenly fainted again and hasn't woken up yet. Is it related to Dad? What are you hiding from us? Xia Dong's heart tightened. Baby, how's your daddy now? Xiao Bao sighed. He hasn't woken up yet. Anyway, I've asked great-grandma and grandma, but they won't tell me what happened to Dad. Xiao Yi's voice suddenly came from the other end of the line. I want to talk to Mommy too. Xiao Bao said unhappily, I haven't finished speaking. Wait a moment. Xia Dong rubbed her brows and said gently, don't fight over it. Take your time. Xiao Yi's voice came from the other end. Mommy, are you used to living there alone? Do you want the servants to come over and take care of you? Xia Dong's heart softened. No need. Mommy can take care of myself. Xiao Yi, you're the older brother. You have to take care of your younger siblings, okay? But Mommy, I know. Xia Dong successfully changed the topic to the 2 little guys' studies. She didn't answer their questions. The 3 of them chatted for nearly half an hour. She urged them to go to bed early before they reluctantly hung up the phone. Lying in bed, she couldn't fall asleep for a long time. Her mind kept thinking about Bailey Han. He fainted again. Did that mean his condition had worsened? She finally fell asleep after midnight. Just as she fell asleep, she was woken up by the ringtone of her phone. It was Bailey Han. She quickly answered the call. She heard 2 words. Open the door. She opened the door in her pajamas. Bailey Han stood in front of her with a dark face. The hair on his forehead was wet with sweat. He was wearing a white shirt and his suit jacket was draped over his arm. His chest rose and fell rapidly as he panted heavily. He seemed to be in a hurry. He looked at her with a dark face and stared at her coldly. The trace of anticipation in her heart disappeared. She twisted her fingers together and smiled self-deprecatingly. Are you here to ask me to sign the divorce agreement? Actually, you don't have to come in the middle of the night. I won't run away. Before she could finish speaking, he suddenly pulled her into his arms. He buried his head in her neck. Why did you leave? Xia Dong didn't dare to raise her head or speak. She was afraid that she was still dreaming. She only hugged his waist tightly and felt his strong heartbeat. He cupped her face and stared into her eyes. He looked emotional. I woke up and suddenly realized that you were gone. I was about to go crazy. How could you leave me alone? Xia Dong's nose twitched and tears almost fell. She tried her best to hold them back. I'm sorry. I just wanted to come back and take a look. I was about to go crazy. He pulled her into his arms again. Tell me what happened. What do you mean by the divorce agreement you mentioned just now? She bit her lip and tried to calm herself down. She patted his back with her right hand. Hubby, your clothes are wet with sweat. Come in first and we can talk slowly. Bailey Han went to the bathroom to take a shower. Xia Dong looked for a long time but couldn't find any suitable clothes for him. She could only hang the bath towel on the bathroom door handle. Hubby, I don't have any clothes for you. You can use the bath towel first. I'll go to the supermarket in the neighborhood to buy some clothes for you. No need. Bailey Han's deep voice came from the bathroom. It's not safe at this time of the night. Xia Dong scratched her head. It's very close. It's okay. She didn't wait for his reply. She changed her shoes, took her wallet and keys, and hurried downstairs. When Bailey Han came out of the bathroom, she was already gone. He was worried about her. He still clearly remembered that the elevator in this building had broken down. He only hesitated for a second. Then he wrapped a bath towel around his waist, locked the door, and took the elevator downstairs to wait for her. Xia Dong walked into the corridor with shopping bags. The first thing she saw was a naked upper body. She screamed in fear. Honey, it's me. Why did you come down dressed like this? Xia Dong blushed and quickly pushed him into the elevator. Attention, Song Shu 566. Chapter 232. His expression was calm. It's early in the morning. No one will see. Xia Dong was both embarrassed and angry. Please, there are surveillance cameras in this building. Many people will see you like this. They will definitely think you're an exhibitionist. If she guessed correctly, he was definitely not wearing anything under the towel. Because he was a clean freak, he would rather die than wear the underwear that he had just changed out of. They won't dare to say anything, Bailey Han said indifferently, as if he was not the perverted exhibitionist in the surveillance cameras. Xia Dong held her forehead with one hand. She did not want to make any more comments. How can my face be more important than your safety? He turned to look at her. His tone was still indifferent, but it was deeply imprinted in her heart. She held his hand and interlocked their fingers. No matter how many difficulties there were in the future, she would stand shoulder to shoulder with him and bear them together. Xia Dong bought a set of men's pajamas with long sleeves and trousers. After all, it was already October and the weather was already cold. She took out a shirt from the shopping bag. Put it on. Don't catch a cold. Bailey Han put on his shirt in the elevator. He still had a towel wrapped around his waist. It looked a little funny, but he did not mind at all. Xia Dong did not think much of it. In her eyes, no matter what he looked like, he would always be the handsome and charming Bailey Han. When she fell asleep, he hugged her in his arms and said softly, "Honey, we'll go home tomorrow." But she leaned comfortably in his arms. You still haven't told me what happened. He did not understand why he fainted at home. When he woke up, he could not remember what had happened. He did not even know why he fainted. Xia Dong closed her eyes and said softly, "Hubby, I'm so sleepy, we'll talk about it later, okay?" He kissed her forehead helplessly. Okay, go to sleep. Xia Dong breathed a sigh of relief. No matter what, she had to delay it for as long as possible. Maybe tomorrow he would forget about it. However, Bailey Han was very persistent and didn't forget about it at all. During breakfast, he asked again. Xia Dong evaded his question. "Ahan, did you tell your family that you came out last night? They must be very anxious. The butler saw me when I went out." Bailey Han wiped her lips with a tissue. "Don't change the subject, honey. Just answer my question." Xia Dong laughed dryly and said half-truthfully, "Actually, it's nothing much. Didn't you get into a car accident before? I heard from the doctor that it's just a little, really just a little, Sequela. You will occasionally have headaches, and when the headaches are severe, you may faint. When you wake up, you will forget what happened that day. He looked at her suspiciously. Is that really all? She hurriedly promised, Really, I'm not lying to you. His eyes narrowed. Then what about the divorce agreement? Xia Dong stared at him innocently. You really don't remember? You were the one who suggested it. If I remembered, why would I ask you? Bailey Han pinched his forehead. Because of Su Yunqian, we quarreled yesterday. In a fit of anger, you said you wanted a divorce and even prepared the divorce agreement. I brought it up to calm you down. Why did we quarrel? Bailey Han had no recollection of what she said. Did I really ask for a divorce? Because I wasn't happy that you went to visit Su Yunqian. In order to hide the truth, Xia Dong took the blame for the quarrel and lied as if it was true. You felt guilty towards her, so you went to visit her often. I was worried that you would fall in love with her again. You were very angry at that time, so you asked for a divorce. No, that's impossible. No matter how angry I was, I couldn't have asked for a divorce. Bailey Han couldn't believe that he would say such a thing. But you said it. You also said that I couldn't take the 3 children away. She thought of the grievances she had suffered yesterday and didn't need to pretend at all. Tears welled up in her eyes. Seeing her sad tears, Bailey Han immediately panicked. He couldn't care less about the loopholes in her words. He walked to her side and hugged her. I'm sorry, wifey. I really don't remember. Forgive me for saying such disgraceful things. She looked up at him with teary eyes. You're not getting a divorce? He looked annoyed. Don't talk about divorce again. I'm about to die from regret. How could I be so foolish to say such things? Her eyes were brimming with tears and her expression was extremely pitiful. You really didn't do it on purpose? I swear, I definitely didn't do it on purpose. A certain someone hadn't realized that his attention had been diverted again. Who asked him to feel sorry for his wife. She said aggrievedly, All right then, I forgive you. If you talk about divorce again, I'll run away from home again. Don't talk about divorce again. He looked flustered and exasperated as he spoke through gritted teeth. She buried her face in his chest and her lips curled into a mischievous smile. Wifey, even if I visit Yunqian often, I won't have any other thoughts. You have to believe me. Right now, I just want to grow old with you. He thought that she had really quarreled with him because of this matter, so he comforted her in a low voice. She hugged him tightly. But I won't misunderstand you in the future. Good girl. He gently stroked her hair. I'll help you pack up. We'll go home now. She obediently agreed. The two of them cleaned up the kitchen together and started to pack up the big suitcase that Xia Dong had brought back. Bailey Han was afraid that she would overwork herself, so he let her sit by the bed and give instructions. He put all the things that she had placed outside back into the suitcase. Bailey Han put the suitcase into the trunk of her car and found that there were 2 gift boxes inside. He looked at Xia Dong in confusion. Xia Dong explained, I told Grandma yesterday that I was going back to my parents' house. Grandma prepared these gifts for me. He smiled. Since the gifts are prepared, let's go to your aunt's house. Ever since Su Yunqian's incident, he hadn't accompanied her back to her parents' house. It was time to visit the 2 of them. Xia Yun was originally worried that Bailey Han's feelings for Xia Dong would change because of Su Yunqian's kidnapping. Now that she saw the 2 of them coming to visit, she was extremely happy and couldn't stop smiling. She quickly called Gao Mingyuan and told him to go to the supermarket to buy groceries after class and come home early. After more than an hour, Gao Mingyuan came back with big and small bags. Xia Dong helped her aunt wash the vegetables and cook while Bailey Han played chess with her uncle. The family was happy and harmonious. Everything would have been perfect if that phone call hadn't happened. At the dining table, Bailey Han's phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID and said politely, Excuse me, I have to take a call. He took the phone and walked to the balcony. Auntie, what's the matter? Mrs. Su sighed. I'm sorry to bother you. You didn't come to the hospital this morning and Yunqian is throwing a tantrum. I want to ask you, when will you come over? Bailey Han glanced in the direction of the living room. I have something to do here, so I can't leave for now. I'll be there in the evening. Bang! A loud sound came from the other end of the phone. Bailey Han frowned. Auntie, what's wrong? Nothing, nothing. Yun Qian threw a tantrum and flipped the chair over. Your uncle is in the ward trying to calm her down. Bailey Han pinched his forehead. She's very emotional now? Yes, she's been nagging since this morning. She's been waiting for you to come. She said that she wants you to take her to see the sunrise. After that, she cried and threw a tantrum. Now she refuses to eat. Sigh, she hasn't eaten since this morning. This child is really worrying me to death. Bailey Han tightened his grip on the phone and said in a deep voice, Auntie, don't worry. I'll be at the hospital in about an hour. Mrs. Su choked. Thank you so much. Bailey Han looked at the kind Xia Yun couple and Xia Dong, who was smiling brightly. He didn't know what to say. After dinner, Xia Dong helped her aunt clean up the dishes. He and his uncle sat on the sofa and chatted. During this time, he raised his hand to look at his watch. Gao Mingyuan smiled and said, do you have something to do? If you do, hurry up and do it. Xia Yun's voice came from the kitchen. Yes, An, it's good enough that Xia is with us. Go to your thing first. Bailey Han smiled apologetically. My friend has some problems and wants me to go over and help her deal with it. Then hurry up and go. Gao Mingyuan urged him. Don't let her wait for too long. Hey, Uncle Annie, I'll go first. Honey, stay here and chat with them. I'll come and pick you up in the evening. Bailey Han put on his coat. Xia nodded and pushed Xia Dong's arm. Xia Dong, go and see Han off. Xia Dong wiped her hands and followed Bailey Han out. When they reached the elevator, Bailey Han held her hand and said, Honey, I'm going to the hospital. There's something wrong with Yun Qian. You stay here and wait for me to pick you up. Xia Dong helped him adjust his collar and said, Okay, I'll wait for you. Be careful on the road. His eyes were full of smiles as he lowered his head and kissed her lips. When Bailey Han arrived at the hospital, the situation was very bad. Su Yunqian blocked the door of the ward and shouted that no one was allowed to enter. She also didn't allow the nurses to clean up the room. Su Bolin and his wife tried their best to persuade her, but she refused to listen. She locked the door and hid inside alone. Seeing Bailey Han coming over, Su Bolin and his wife looked as if they had seen their savior. They said, please persuade Yun Qian. Bailey Han knocked on the door. Yun Qian, it's me. I'm here. Open the door and let me in. Su Yunqian's voice was a little hoarse. Who are you? I'm Bailey Han. She shouted hysterically, I don't believe it. You're not a Han. You must be lying to me. Bailey Han said patiently, I'm not lying to you. If you don't believe me, open the door and take a look. Add, Shinmu 799. Chapter 233. Su Yunqian didn't believe him and asked, What if you're lying to me? Bailey Han said in a low voice, If I'm lying to you, then close the door and don't let anyone in. She frowned and thought for a while. Then she said, Okay, I'm going to open the door. Stand back. Bailey Han took a few steps back, and Su Bolin and his wife also took a few steps back. The door opened with a click. Su Yunqian stood at the door with her hair disheveled. The room was in a mess. The food was spilled all over the floor, the chair was overturned, and the quilt on the bed was thrown to the ground. She looked at Bailey Han seriously and suddenly grinned. You're really a Han. Bailey Han nodded. See, I didn't lie to you. She pouted. Why didn't you come to see me in the morning? Bailey Han pursed his lips and said, I'm sick. Su Yunqian approached him and put her hand on his forehead. She asked worriedly, Do you have a fever? Are you better now? He pulled her hand down and led her into the room. I'm better now. The room is very messy. Get someone to clean it up. Gi Gai followed behind him and sat on the sofa. The nurse hurried in to clean up. Su Yunqian had spilled a meal, so Su Bolin asked someone to buy a new one. It happened to be delivered. He put the food on the coffee table. Yunqian, you haven't eaten yet. Eat something first. Han, I want you to feed me. Su Yunqian stuffed the chopsticks into Bailey Han's hand and smiled like an innocent child. Bailey Han held the chopsticks stiffly. Mrs. Su hurriedly said, Yunqian, you're an adult. You have to eat by yourself. You can't let others feed you anymore. Su Yunqian burst into tears. But I just want Han to feed me. Otherwise, I won't eat. Mrs. Su had a headache. Su Bolin sighed. Yunqian is like a child now. Just treat her like Xiao Jing. Father Su was right. He should just treat her like a child. Bailey Han took a tissue and wiped the tears off Su Yunqian's face. He said softly, Don't cry. Come, let's eat. He picked up her favorite dishes and fed them to her. She ate with relish and said with a smile, I want you to feed me in the future too. Bailey Han smirked. If you don't throw tantrums in Gigai in the future, I'll feed you. She nodded heavily. I won't lose my temper anymore. I promise I'll come to see you every day, but not necessarily in the morning. So, you're not allowed to lose your temper if you don't see me in the morning. Do you understand? All right, I'll remember that. Good girl. Bailey Han coaxed her in the way he coaxed a child. Su Bolin and his wife felt their hearts ache. At around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Bailey Yun took his small suitcase and embarked on his journey to New York. This time, it would be a long time before he returned. This time, only Bailey Xiong came to see him off. Bailey Xiong looked at his youngest son who was even taller than him. His eyes couldn't help but moisten. He patted his shoulder and said, Yun, take good care of your body. No matter what happens, you must remember that we will always be your family. I got it, Dad. Bailey Yun hugged his father. Dad, my mom has been with you for a lifetime. I hope you can treat her well. I will. Bailey Xiong was full of guilt towards Lu Xiaoxiao. He kept satisfying her with material and money. In the airport hall, a notice to remind passengers to board rang. Bailey Yun carried his suitcase, waved at Bailey Xiong, and turned around with a smile. Goodbye, city. Goodbye, my love. Bailey Yun found his seat in the first-class cabin. After sitting down, he took out his earphones and stuffed them into his ears. It was so sad that it made people despair. A deep sense of helplessness enveloped him like a tide, pulling him into the abyss of despair, almost suffocating him. Suddenly, a hand patted his shoulder gently, as if pulling him out of the abyss. He slowly opened his eyes and looked up at the owner of the hand. A cute round face with a bright smile and eyes curved into beautiful crescents. Her voice was sweet and pleasant. Bailey Yun, we meet again. Bailey Yun was startled and took off his earphones. Li Bao Bao, she smiled even more brightly. No, it's Li Duo Bao. She pointed at the dining car beside her. What kind of drink do you like? Apple juice. Seeing her round face and cute smile, he thought of a big red apple. Okay, please wait a moment. Li Duobao skillfully poured a glass of apple juice and placed it in front of him. Please enjoy. When Li Duobao pushed the dining car and was about to leave, Bailey Yun called out to her. Li Duobao, has the injury on your leg healed? She smiled. It's healed a long time ago. When are you returning? The day after tomorrow. Because it's a long flight, we can rest for a day. Bailey Yun took out a name card and handed it to her. This is my name card. If you're bored, you can call me. I'll take you around New York. Her beautiful face revealed a look of surprise. Bailey Yun raised his charming foxy eyes. Don't think too much. I'm just trying to make up for my mistake last time. Li Duobao patted her chest exaggeratedly. Then I'm relieved. Bailey Yun was angry and amused. Am I that uncharming? She smiled mischievously. It's because you're extremely charming that I'm worried. I'm afraid that I'll be charmed by you. Bailey Yun's eyes lit up. Just as he was about to say something, a guest in front called the stewardess. Li Duobao smiled embarrassedly. I have to work. Go ahead. In the subsequent flight, Li Duobao came to the first-class cabin a few more times. However, because they were busy, they didn't talk anymore. When the plane arrived at its destination, Li Duobao stood at the exit and bowed to the passengers. Bailey Yun deliberately walked at the back. When he passed by her, he said, Li Duobao, I've always wanted to ask you. Have you ever hated that senior who lied to you? Li Duobao was stunned for a moment before he realized what he was talking about. He smiled and said, I hated him very much at that time, but I didn't hate him anymore. I even thanked him. If he hadn't told me the truth at that time and had only told me when I was in love with him for a long time, I would have been even sadder. Bai Liyun's eyes flickered as he pondered. Li Duobao continued, we have to thank those who make us feel pain and despair. It's because we feel pain and despair that we start a new life. Bai Liyun chuckled. I didn't expect you to say something so philosophical. Xia Dong was so heartless to him. Did she want him to start a new life? She touched her nose embarrassedly. Actually, this sentence was said by Yu. I stole it. Bai Liyun's smile became even brighter. No matter what, I have to thank you. She blinked. You're welcome. I'm leaving. Remember to call me whenever you want to visit New York. He casually brushed the hair on his forehead, put on his sunglasses and waved coolly. Goodbye. Li Duobao bowed. Please take care. Xia Dong stayed at her aunt's house until 5 in the afternoon. Bai Lihan drove her home. When she got home, the children had also come back from kindergarten. When they saw Xia Dong, they swarmed over and hugged her legs as they cheered. They looked so happy that it was as if they had not seen each other for years. At night, the 3 little rascals were still in their room and refused to leave. Bai Lihan snorted on Xiao Bao's and Xiao Yi's heads. You 2 rascals, go back and rest. Don't stay here and steal my wife. Xiao Guai lay in Xia Dong's arms and giggled. Xiao Bao snorted. Dad, are you trying to steal Mom from us? Xiao Yi was speechless. Xiao Bao, let's admit defeat. We don't have a wife. Xiao Bao blinked her large eyes. Speaking of which, Xiao Yi, why don't we go back to our room and discuss what kind of wife we should marry in the future? Xiao Yi nodded seriously. This is a question worth discussing. Let's go back to our room. The 2 little rascals looked like they were good brothers as they rolled back to their room with their arms around each other's shoulders. Bai Lihan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He picked up his cute little daughter from Xia Dong's arms. Gigai, say goodnight to Mommy. Daddy will take you back to your room to rest. Xiao Guai waved her soft little hand and said goodnight with a smile. He finally coaxed the 3 little rascals back to their room. Bai Lihan hugged his dear wife contentedly. He bit her earlobe and whispered, Honey, I missed you. Xia Dong deliberately pretended not to understand his hint and smiled brightly. Hubby, you don't have to miss me. Look, I'm in your arms right now. Bai Lihan bit her little ear hard. Little rascal, you're deliberately twisting my meaning. I'm going to punish you. She shrunk her neck and laughed in his arms. How are you going to punish me? Do some exercises before bed. He nuzzled her neck and his hands sneaked under her clothes unruly. He caressed her breasts, which had become even more pink because of her pregnancy. Xia Dong avoided his mischievous hands and her cheeks were flushed red from shyness. But I'm already very tired. Have you heard of a saying? Bai Lihan quietly unbuttoned her bra from the back. His palms landed on the 2 soft areas and gently squeezed them. She couldn't help but moan softly. Her head tilted back, revealing her beautiful curves. She trembled for a while before she asked, What saying? He didn't stop and skillfully kneaded her breasts. He buried his head in her neck and chuckled. There's no land that's ruined by plowing, only cows that are exhausted to death. Xia Dong's cheeks were burning. She couldn't help but push him. You're so naughty. If I'm not naughty, how can I make you love me more? He said one sentence after another, which made her blush and her heart beat faster. But the child? Xia Dong worriedly placed her hand on her stomach. He gently bit her collarbone and whispered, I'll protect the child well, honey. Don't worry and leave you to me. She saw his scorching gaze, which was filled with tenderness and love. His forehead was already wet with sweat. Sweat slid down his naked upper body and muscular chest. She knew that he had endured for a long time. She also knew that he had strong self-control and wouldn't hurt her and the baby. Full of trust, she finally gave up her shyness. She reached out her arms and hugged his neck. Bailey Han kissed Xiaodong's cheek. The tip of his tongue slid towards her earlobe. The numb feeling made her shiver uncontrollably. "Hubby! Hubby!" Xiaodong murmured uneasily. Her body moved impatiently, as if she was anticipating something. Her voice was different from usual. It was gentle and seductive. Her seductive gaze made Bailey Han's desire soar, almost shattering his rationality. He carried her onto the bed and placed his hands on both sides of her body, trying his best to keep a distance from her bulging belly. He lowered his head and sealed her soft lips with his thin lips domineeringly. He forcefully invaded her mouth and entangled his tongue with hers. Xia Dong felt like her body was a puddle of water, completely melting into his enchanting masculine scent. The strong attack made her almost unable to breathe. After being pregnant, her body was more sensitive than usual. At this moment, because of his kiss, her body had already ignited a flame, burning her rationality. "I feel so uncomfortable." Xia Dong's hair was already wet with sweat. Her black hair was scattered on the bright red bedsheets, looking incomparably beautiful. Her eyes were misty, her cheeks were flushed, and her lips were swollen from the kiss. It was both beautiful and beautiful. Bailey Han's eyes were deep, intertwined with deep desire. There was a charming smile on his handsome face. He leaned against her neck, enjoying her soft and boneless charm. As he kissed her, he whispered, "Wifey, don't worry. I'll make you feel good." Xia Dong closed her eyes shyly. Her body was tense and her white jade-like feet were trembling slightly. Her entire body was tinged with a faint pink. Bailey Han's hot hands continued to wander around her body. Suddenly, he pulled off the last piece of underwear on her body. He was worried about the baby, so every movement was very slow. The torturous feeling was simply maddening. His movements slowly increased. The scorching flames burned in her body, almost burning her to ashes. In the end, fireworks seemed to explode in her mind. Her vision was white as she lay on his chest, panting. Bailey Han hugged her gently and laid her flat beside him. After she rested for a while, he carried her into the bathroom. He carefully washed her with hot water and wiped her with a dry towel. During the entire process, Xia Dong kept her eyes closed and leaned in his arms. She was so tired that she couldn't even move her fingers. After he put on a bathrobe for her and carried her back to the bed, she quickly fell into a deep sleep. Welfare Hongcha 866. Chapter 234. Su Yunqian had been hospitalized for more than a month. Every day, Bailey Han would go to the hospital to take care of her. Old Madam, Bai Jinxiu, and the others would also visit her from time to time. Once, Xia Dong also went to the hospital under Bailey Jing's invitation. Xia Dong was not in a hurry to enter the ward. She was worried that she would agitate Su Yunqian. Instead, she stood at the door and watched for a while. After making sure that her mood had not deteriorated, she walked in. That was the first time she had watched Bailey Han personally feed Su Yunqian. Her feelings were very complicated. She felt guilty towards Su Yunqian and supported Bailey Han in taking care of her. However, when she saw Bailey Han treating Su Yunqian so intimately with her own eyes, she still felt very uncomfortable. Old Madam and Bai Jinxiu had long been accustomed to it and were not surprised. On the contrary, Bailey Jing quietly leaned over to her ear and whispered, "Sister-in-law, don't be jealous. Big brother said that he would take care of Su Yunqian just like he would take care of me." Xia Dong curled her lips and was grateful for her thoughtfulness. After that, Xia Dong followed Bailey Jing to visit Su Yunqian a few times. Every time Su Yunqian saw her, she would smile sweetly and affectionately call her beautiful sister. Xia Dong felt awkward when she heard it, but she could only smile and agree. The baby in Xia Dong's stomach was already 20 weeks old. It was time for a checkup. She had made an appointment with Lin Shihao in advance, and Bailey Han accompanied her. There were many pregnant mothers waiting outside the obstetrics and gynecology department for a checkup. Bailey Han held her arm as if he was serving the Empress Dowager. Many people looked up at them, especially the expectant mothers who came alone for a pregnancy checkup. Their eyes were filled with envy. Xiaodong lowered her voice in embarrassment. I can walk on my own. Actually, her belly didn't look big, so it didn't affect her movements at all. Bailey Han chuckled. That won't do. Even if you agree, the baby won't agree. I'm supporting the baby. Looking at his proud expression, Xiaodong couldn't help but laugh. When she arrived at the waiting area, there were only 2 people in front of Xiaodong. Just as it was almost Xiaodong's turn, Bailey Han suddenly received a phone call from Lu Zihao. Xiaodong smiled and said, Answer the phone first. Come and find me later. Lin Shihao's face turned grave as he examined her. Xiaodong's heart tightened. Her fingers gripped the corner of her clothes tightly as she asked nervously, Shihao, is there something wrong with the baby? Lin Shihao shook his head. The baby is normal. However, we found a tumor in your uterus. The possibility of it being malignant is very high. We still need to do further tests. Xiaodong widened her eyes in disbelief. After a few seconds, she asked, Shihao, if it's a malignant tumor, how do we treat it? You need surgery to abort the baby and remove the uterus. Xiaodong felt as if she had been struck by lightning, but she quickly calmed down. Even if it's a malignant tumor, I can't abort the baby. Shihao, I beg you, don't tell Han about this first. Lin Shihao looked at Xiaodong's pleading eyes and finally nodded. Dr. Lin, how's the situation? Bailey Han finished the phone call and walked into Lin Shihao's office. Lin Shihao smiled. The baby is developing very well. He already has hearing and memory. You can start the most basic prenatal education. Bailey Han asked again, how's my wife's health? Lin Shihao's smile faded a little. She's also very healthy. Before Bailey Han came in, Xiaodong had already made an appointment with Lin Shihao for a further checkup. She decided to hide the uterine fibroids from Bailey Han and her family. Bailey Han helped Xiaodong into the car. When he buckled her seatbelt, he pressed his face against her stomach and chuckled softly. Baby, it's Daddy. Daddy is going to take you and Mommy home now. He gently caressed her stomach. As if he had heard his voice, the baby suddenly kicked him with his little foot. He immediately smiled. Wifey, the baby heard me. The baby is so obedient. Xiaodong placed her hand on the back of his hand. There was a gentle smile on her face, but there was an unknown sadness hidden in her heart. The next day, Xiaodong went to the People's Hospital without telling anyone. She did a more detailed checkup. The results showed that the tumor was malignant. Xiaodong leaned against the hospital bed and froze. Lin Shihao didn't know how to comfort her. After a moment of silence, he said, Are you really not going to have the surgery? Xiaodong nodded stiffly. This baby concerns Xiaoguai's life. I have to give birth to him. Get some rest first. I'll ask Siki to take you back. Xiaodong forced a smile. No, it's okay. I can go back by myself. You go ahead. Although Xiaodong pretended to be strong and acted as if nothing had happened, Lin Shihao was still worried. He called Yi Siki and asked her to go to the hospital to accompany Xiaodong. When Yi Siki heard that Xiaodong was sick, she hung up the phone and rushed to the hospital. When she saw Xiaodong lying on the hospital bed with a pale face, her heart ached. She sat by the bed and asked, Xia, how are you feeling now? Xiaodong smiled. Didn't I ask Shihao not to tell you? Why did you still come over? Silly girl, is there a need to be so polite between us? Yi Siki brushed away the hair on her forehead and pulled out a tissue to wipe the sweat on her forehead. Xiaodong held her hand. Yezi, you have to keep my illness a secret. Don't tell Han. Why? Don't tell me you want to bear the pain and pressure alone? As long as I can hold on until the 40th week and give birth to the children, I can go for the operation. I don't want them to suffer with me. Yi Siki sighed. You're too silly. The father and daughter sang the same tune. Yi Siki didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but her depressed mood was also relieved a lot. After breakfast, they watched TV for a while. Yi Siki took her daughter to take a shower. Lin Shihao was checking his daughter's homework when his cell phone suddenly rang. He didn't need to look to know who was calling. During this period, Bai Meiwei had been texting or calling him at this time every night, but he had never replied. Lin Shihao hung up again. 2 minutes later, he received a text message. Senior, I'm pregnant. I'm at Charm Bar right now. If you don't come over, I'll tell Yi Siki about this. Pregnant. These 2 words were like a bolt from the blue. Lin Shihao couldn't come back to his senses for a long time. His limbs were cold and he almost stopped breathing. His relationship with Siki had just improved, and now Bai Meiwei's pregnancy had suddenly popped up. How should he deal with it? Lin Shihao sat on the sofa dejectedly. He hugged his head with both hands, and his mind was in a mess. His cell phone rang again. It was a text from Bai Meiwei. Senior, I'll call Yi Siki in an hour. Lin Shihao suddenly stood up. Yi Siki came out of the bathroom and saw this scene. She was shocked. Hubby, why do you look so pale? Are you feeling unwell? Lin Shihao said stiffly, I have a headache. I'm going out to buy some medicine. Okay, go quickly. Yi Siki didn't suspect anything. She took his coat and helped him put it on. Lin Shihao almost didn't dare to look her in the eye. He took his car keys and hurried out. Beauty novel, Shinwu 799. Chapter 235. Yi Siki felt that his expression was a little strange. She thought that it was because of his headache, so she didn't think too much about it. After returning to the room, she found his wallet on the bedside table and quickly called him. The phone rang a few times before he answered. Honey, what's wrong? Yi Siki said, Hubby, you left your wallet at home. Wait for me downstairs. I'll send it down for you. No need. I still have some money in my pocket. Oh, okay then. Go and come back quickly. There was a pharmacy just outside their neighborhood. It would take more than half an hour to go there. Lin Shihao drove the car out of the underground garage. He used the GPS to find the location of Charm Say and sped all the way to the destination. When he arrived at the bar, Bai Meiwei was sitting in the corner of the hall, drinking. She was wearing a light yellow dress. She tilted her head and looked at him with intoxicated eyes. Senior, you're here. Lin Shihao snatched the wine glass from her hand. Meiwei, tell me clearly. What's with the pregnancy? Bai Meiwei smiled foolishly. I'm pregnant. It's been 6 weeks. Senior, what do you think I should do now? Lin Shihao was about to go crazy. If he hadn't been so panicked at that time and let her take the emergency contraceptive pill, this wouldn't have happened. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, Meiwei, you should abort this child. He had already made a decision on the way here. You want me to abort the child? Bai Meiwei widened her eyes in disbelief. Senior, you're a doctor. Don't you know how much damage a woman's body will suffer from an abortion? Moreover, this is our baby. How can you be so cruel? I know that an abortion will hurt you, but Meiwei, the 2 of us have no future. I can't give you happiness. If the child is born, it will only cause trouble for us. Even if I let you down, we can't have this child. Lin Shihao mustered up a lot of courage to say these words. He was also full of guilt towards Bai Meiwei. I don't care. I want to give birth to this child. Tears streamed down Bai Meiwei's face. Senior, you can't be so cruel. I love this child. You can't force me to give him up. Lin Shihao's deep eyes were filled with pain. Meiwei, you're still young and have a bright future ahead of you. You can't ruin yourself because of this child. I beg you, give up on the child. No, I don't want to listen. Bai Meiwei shook her head frantically, crying hysterically, Senior, I beg you, let me keep this child. As long as you keep the child, I won't bother you anymore. Meiwei, you're drunk. Calm down first. Seeing that she was so agitated, Lin Shihao knew that there was no point in continuing the conversation, so he softened his tone and said, Let's talk about this again after we calm down. Bai Meiwei's face was covered in tears. Lin Shihao sighed and handed her a tissue. She didn't take it. She bit her lip and cried silently. Lin Shihao hesitated for a moment, but still helped her wipe her tears. She suddenly grabbed his hand and looked at him with teary eyes. Senior, how am I not as good as Yi Siki? Lin Shihao stared into her eyes and said slowly, Mei Wei, you're very good. You're beautiful, young, and talented. But I love Siki. Even if Bai Mei Wei was perfect, he didn't love her. Bai Mei Wei's eyes filled with tears again. Let's go. I'll take you home first. You're drunk. Lin Shihao stood up and stretched out his right hand. Bai Mei Wei reached out and placed her hand in his. With his help, she stood up. She didn't know how much she had drunk, but she wasn't drunk. She clearly understood that this man didn't love her and didn't want the baby in her arms. But she wanted to give the baby a complete family. Lin Shihao helped her into the car. He focused on driving without looking sideways. She leaned back in her seat and turned to look out the window. The night view of the city was mesmerizing. The lights were bright, but to her, it was filled with sadness. Bai Mei Wei bit her lip and held back the tears in her eyes. She stroked her belly with her right hand and secretly made up her mind that she had to give the baby a complete family. She couldn't act rashly anymore. She had to adopt a rational strategy. Lin Shihao walked her to the door of the villa. She turned to look at him. Under the light, she revealed a pale smile. Senior, thank you for taking me home. I was drunk just now. Don't take what I said to heart. I will carefully consider whether or not to give up on the child. Lin Shihao said in a low voice, You're tired. Go back and rest early. We'll talk about the child in 2 days. She obediently opened the car door and got out of the car. She stood by the roadside and waved at him. Lin Shihao nodded and drove away. He rushed back to the neighborhood as fast as he could. After entering the elevator, he carefully adjusted his clothes in the mirror inside the elevator. He took a few deep breaths before he walked out of the elevator with a calm expression. Lin Shihao opened the door with his key. After he walked in, he found Yi Siki sitting on the sofa waiting for him. Perhaps she had waited for too long because she had fallen asleep. Her body leaned against the back of the chair and she slept very hard. He didn't even have time to take off his jacket. He bent down and picked her up and walked to the bedroom. Yi Siki wasn't a deep sleeper. She woke up after he took 2 steps. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and asked, Hubby, why were you gone for so long? Did you buy the medicine? Does your head still hurt? Lin Shihao hugged her tightly. The pharmacy in the neighborhood didn't have that kind of medicine, so I went further away to buy it. My head doesn't hurt anymore. Okay, that's good. You must have been working too hard. That's why you have a headache. I'll buy some nutritious food for your brain tomorrow. Yi Siki reached out and hugged his neck. Lin Shihao felt guilty and touched. He said gently, Honey, you don't have to wait for me in the future. If you're tired, go to sleep first. He felt very sad when he saw her sleeping so hard on the sofa. Okay, I know. She rubbed against his chest comfortably. She hadn't done that intimate action in a long time. Lin Shihao kissed her forehead and put her on the bed. Honey, go to sleep first. I'm going to take a shower. She answered lazily. She crawled under the covers and quickly closed her eyes. In the bathroom, the sound of water splashing could be heard. Lin Shihao looked at the foggy mirror. His face was a blur. He clenched his fists in pain. Bai Mei Wei's sorrowful cries and Siki's trusting gaze intertwined in his mind. He was in so much pain that he wanted to die. Life went on. Some people were in pain, while others were in bliss. Xia Dong had already begun to feel the pain caused by the tumor. Her stomach ached, her back ached, and she felt as if she was falling. Actually, before she was diagnosed, she had felt the same way. However, she had always thought that it was a normal condition of pregnancy and didn't take it to heart. When she woke up in the morning, her stomach started to hurt again. She held her stomach and sat on the bed, not wanting to move for a long time. Bailey Han finished washing up and came out of the bathroom. Seeing that she didn't look too good, he strode over and asked anxiously, Honey, is your stomach hurting? Xia Dong looked up at him and smiled. No, the baby kicked me just now. Bailey Han's expression brightened. He stroked her stomach gently and smiled. Baby, don't torture your mommy anymore. Otherwise, when you come out, Daddy will spank your butt. Xia Dong cried out, The baby moved. He must be unhappy with what you said. After the baby moved a little, her stomach actually didn't hurt anymore. Bailey Han deliberately put on a stern face. Little brat, you dare to protest against daddy now? When you grow up, you'll turn the sky upside down. Xia Dong hurriedly covered his mouth. You're so annoying. Don't scare the child. The doctor said that the baby now has hearing and memory. He will remember what you said. Bailey Han held her hand and chuckled. I know, honey. In the future, when we do intimate things, we have to worry about the baby peeking. Pervert. Xia Dong rolled her eyes at him in annoyance. Her cheeks quietly turned red. Bailey Han was in a good mood and kissed her on the lips. He whispered, the baby has hearing. You can't scold me in the future. Otherwise, if the baby hears it, he will definitely misunderstand that his daddy is a bad person. Hey, you're not a good person to begin with. Xia Dong poked his arm with her finger and deliberately put on a stern face. You took me hostage and used your power to force me to marry you. This matter is a sad history full of blood and tears. Bailey Han's face was bitter. Honey, can we not talk about that matter anymore? She raised her eyebrows proudly. No, that matter is enough for me to talk about for the rest of my life. All right, if you're happy, I'm willing to let you talk about it for the rest of my life. Bailey Han saw her smile and his heart was bubbling with happiness. He hugged her and kissed her again and again. Xia Dong blushed and pushed him. Hurry up and go to work. Otherwise, you'll be late. Bailey Han teased her for a while more before going downstairs with a smile. When Xia Dong finished tidying up and went downstairs, Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao Gigai were sitting at the dining table eating. Bailey Han had just finished eating and stood up gracefully. He touched the two little guys' heads and reminded them to be obedient at school today. Then he walked in front of Xia Dong, put his arm around her waist, and said softly, Honey, I'm going to the company. Okay, be careful on the road. Xia Dong smiled as she sent him to the door. As her illness worsened, Xia Dong handed the task of sending the children to and from school to the driver. She was worried that she would fall ill while driving. That would be too dangerous. Lin Shihao prescribed her some medicine that had the effect of suppressing the illness, but she was worried that it would have a negative effect on the baby, so she did not take it. After taking it home, she secretly poured it down the toilet and flushed it all down the drain. Xia Dong rarely went out. She stayed at home to take care of the baby and accompany Gigai. She only went out with Bailey Han regularly to take Gigai to the hospital for chemotherapy. On this day, the weather was very good. The old madam decided to visit Su Yunqian in the hospital. Bailey Jing invited Xia Dong to go with him. Xia Dong did not want to go at first, but the old madam said, Granddaughter-in-law, it's not good for the baby if you stay at home every day. Pregnant women should also exercise appropriately. Come out with us. Xia Dong had no choice but to go with them. Su Yunqian's illness seemed to be improving again. Now her dominant personality had become the naive and cheerful one. Most of the time, she faced everyone with her naive and cheerful side. Su Yunqian was very happy to see Xia Dong. Pretty sister, you're here to see me again. Xia Dong smiled and nodded. The old madam smiled. Granddaughter-in-law, look, Yunqian still misses you. You should come and see her more often in the future. Xia Dong smiled and said, okay. Su Yunqian looked at Xia Dong's belly in surprise. Pretty sister, why is your belly so big? Xia Dong covered her belly with her right hand and smiled. Because there's a Xiaobao baby in my belly. Xiaobao baby? It's so magical. Can I touch it? Xia Dong hesitated for a moment and finally nodded under her pure and expectant gaze. Su Yunqian happily reached out her right hand and carefully touched Xia Dong's belly. It's so round. It's so cute. She touched it for nearly a minute before she reluctantly withdrew her hand. Seeing that her mood had stabilized and her illness had improved, everyone was very happy. The old madam and Mrs. Su chatted for more than an hour. When the old madam and the others were about to leave, Su Yunqian suddenly said, Pretty sister, can I talk to you alone? Xia Dong was a little hesitant. Mrs. Su smiled and said, Xia Dong, it seems that Yunqian likes you very much. Please accompany her for a while. The old madam also said, Granddaughter-in-law, accompany Yunqian for a while. Xia Dong could only nod. Only Xia Dong and Su Yunqian were left in the ward. Su Yunqian looked at her with a smile and pointed at the sofa beside her. Pretty sister, sit over here. Xia Dong smiled and sat beside her. Pretty sister, your name is Xia Dong, right? Su Yunqian held her head with both hands and looked at her with a smile. Xia Dong hummed in acknowledgement. Su Yunqian's smile suddenly disappeared and her expression became cold. She said coldly, Han abandoned me because of you. Her expression changed too quickly and her beautiful eyes were full of hatred. Xia Dong stared at her in disbelief. Miss Su, are you okay? Su Yunqian exuded a dark and strange aura. She was like a vicious witch from hell. Her delicate face was already distorted by hatred and she said coldly, Yes, of course I'm not okay. I was kidnapped by your perverted admirer and I thought you would have a trace of conscience and come to save me. But I never thought that you would watch me get raped by that pervert. Su Yunqian's strange aura and cold tone made Xia Dong shudder. She stepped back vigilantly and said calmly, Miss Su, I'm really sorry about what happened to you. Is it okay to just say sorry? Su Yunqian suddenly grinned. The strange aura around her dissipated and she revealed an innocent smile. Then you're oversimplifying things, pretty sister. Add Song Shu 566. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.